Welcome, football fans, to your Day 1, March 10th, 2025 NFL Free Agency Recap, Reaction, and Analysis. We have plenty to discuss. Yes, I already released a bunch of videos, a bunch of breakdowns on some of the biggest signings on day one of free agency, but we still have so much to discuss. So hop in the live comments. Let me know how you feel about each of these signings, each of these teams, and what they did today. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. And guys, make sure you join the BLV Discord. The link is the pinned comment in the live chat. BLV Discord. It's a great place, free, to go chat about the NFL all free agency long. Shout out to the homies in the chat right now. Shout out to the people watching late at night live on the Bottom Line View. Let's kick it off. I'm not going to waste no more time. I'm not going to waste your time. I was live on Bleacher Report earlier. It was a fun time with the guys. Spent all day talking about football, making videos. I think the plan tomorrow is going to be, I'll probably do like a couple live streams and just cover the signings in bulk, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not quite sure yet. Maybe I'll do some individual videos on some of the bigger signings and some live streams to cover the bulk of the signings, okay? So let's kick it off with a team worthy of the kickoff, and that's a team that only made one signing today. Just one signing, but I want to talk about them. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys signed running back Javonte Williams to a 1-year, $3 million deal with a max of $3.5 million with incentives. Javonte Williams might be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, or he'll at least be a complement to the starting running back. We don't know if Rico Dowdle will be back. He's still out there as a free agent. Dowdle could leave. He could go somewhere where he earns more money. Maybe the Raiders want him, right? That's a team possibly that could grab him. There's some teams out there that might be interested in a Rico Dowdle. But the Broncos running back Javonte Williams was once seen a second-round pick as a great power back who could break many tackles. This past season, he did not have that same ability. Right, he graded as the 50th best running back in football, playing 604 snaps for the Broncos. Just in comparison, Rico Dowdle was graded as the 22nd best running back according to PFF, 634 snaps. Javonte Williams, previously in his career, 19th best running back in his rookie season of 2021, 51st in 2023, 50th in 2024. Since his injury in 2022, where he missed some of the season, he has not been the same player. And honestly, he looked like a really promising running back early in his NFL career, but he hasn't really been able to rebound. So as a rookie, he played 17 games. He had 903 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. He also caught 43 passes for 316 yards and 3 tutties. In 2023 and 2024, after an injured season where he missed a majority of the year, he only played 4 games, 204 yards, and 51 yards per game in 2022 at only 22 years old, okay? He had 774 yards and 3 touchdowns, 3.6 yards per attempt in Sean Payton's first season in Denver. It wasn't a very efficient season for him, but he still caught 47 balls for 228 yards. The thing I like about Javonte Williams is his ability to play on all 3 downs, is the fact that he's a bigger back that has hands. That's useful in the NFL, right? He's 5'10", but he's 220 pounds, and he's very fluid as a pass catcher. He can do that effectively. We've seen that at the NFL level. We saw that in North Carolina. 43 catches as a rookie, 47 catches in 2023, and 52 catches in 2024. Although it felt like he was more so phased out of the offense near the end of the season, to where Audric Estime and also Jaleel McLaughlin became more of a focal point of the running game and of the backfield later in the season. But he could be the starter in Dallas. He's only 25, or going to be 25. He's a 2000. So he's 24 right now. He's going to be turning 25 in April. Okay, so he's still very, very young. He came into the NFL very, very young. So yeah, he still has an opportunity to rebound. And that's maybe what Dallas is looking at. A budget add here for the Dallas Cowboys backfield. A guy that maybe they liked coming out of the draft a couple years ago. Maybe they like his 3-down skill set. Maybe a guy that's limited in terms of explosiveness. But if he can overcome his past injuries, he might be a steal because he had 31 broken tackles according to Pro Football Reference as a rookie at 21 years old. Okay? And he just hasn't been able to replicate that in his career. He had 21 missed tackles forced this season, 331 yards after contact this season, 2.38 yards after contact per attempt, which was not great at the running back position. That was below 50, right? So he has not been a good player. Like 55th in the NFL was his yards per contact per attempt last year. So he's not been a very good running back the last 2 years. He's been inefficient. He's looked slow. He's been plodding. But if he can get back to his explosive self, if he can get back to his breaking tackle ways, he is young, then Dallas might have a bargain bin add on their hands, a guy that could maybe be a 3-down running back and a guy that could be a starter. Do I think it's worth them signing him? I mean, it depends on what they do with the rest of the running back position. If they bring back Rico Dowdle and Javonte Williams as their power back complement who can play on all 3 downs, yeah, I don't mind that. If he's their starting running back, I kind of hate it because I don't think he's a starting running back because the last 2 years, he just hasn't been that caliber of a player. He's not explosive enough. He's not elusive enough. I just don't think he's good enough in any facet or any form. I don't think he's fast enough. But I feel like if he's a short yardage back who can catch the football a little bit and he's a complement to your number one and maybe he does get his legs back, then potentially he could be a pretty smart add by the Dallas Cowboys. So that's where I stand on Javonte. Very cheap contract, 1-year deal, $3 million for a former second-round pick who's only 25 years old. So there's some things to like about it, but it's not like a crazy signing. But that's the first signing that I wanted to break down. Guys, any signings that I've already discussed, I'm not going to talk about. So if you guys haven't caught all the videos on the channel, go check it out. Make sure you tune, because I know that you won't get notifications for all of them. So make sure to look at your YouTube, look at my channel, and see if I've already discussed it. I've made about 5 or 6 videos today, so make sure you go check that out. Jerome is in the chat. Shout out to him. Nightfall is in the chat. Jerome says, I'm just getting here. Who did Dallas pick up at running back? That's Javonte Williams, sir. Christian is in the chat. What's up, bro? He says, that doesn't make any sense. People need to leave Ayuk alone. Like, bruh, he just signed a contract with the Niners. Only good receiver left for the Pats is Cup. Well, Diggs is out there too. I throw Diggs in there. There's some other players, but yeah, Cup is at the top of the list. Sarah's in the chat. What's up, Sarah? What's up, Dagoda? What's up, Singh? Thank you guys for tuning in. Depressed Detroit fan. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button, homies. And Caesar's in the chat. Good day, BLV Nation. All right, let's get to the next set of signings. Who do I want to go with next? I just want to make sure we got all the stats pulled up, and we'll do this in between each of the signings. Guys, this is a recap of the stuff that I haven't done already. Okay, I think I know where I'm going to go with this one. We're going to go with the Cardinals. They signed Josh Sweat today. And if anybody wants to help me out with timestamps, that would be absolutely clutch. If I don't have to spend time on timestamps, that would be absolutely clutch. But it's up to you guys. You guys can just enjoy the viewing experience. Okay. We're going to talk about the Cardinals, Josh Sweat. And they also signed a linebacker. Okay. The Arizona Cardinals have added a much-needed pass rusher to their front seven. A Jonathan Gannon pew-pew pass rusher. That is Josh Sweat of the Philadelphia Eagles. A former Eagle with Gannon, who had his best ever season under Gannon when he was the defensive coordinator during the 2022 NFL season. Sweat signed a 4-year, $76.4 million deal. He, in my opinion, was the best edge rusher available, and the Cardinals desperately needed a pass rusher to get to the quarterback, and that's exactly what they have. A guy that can win on the edge and get to the quarterback, and he's been doing it for years. He's coming off an excellent Super Bowl performance where he was arguably the best player in that game, dominating the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. They also signed a linebacker, Akeem Davis-Gaither of the Cincinnati Bengals, primarily known for his special teams work, but last season did play quite a few snaps. We'll also talk about him. 2 years, $11 million. The Cardinals signed a linebacker, Akeem Gaither. Important because Barnes and White are both free agents for the Cardinals at the linebacker position. Now, diving deeper into Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat is 27 years old, turning 28 at the end of this month of March. Okay, so he'll be 28 by the kickoff of 2025. He's 6'5", 265, big boy, power rusher with really good length. He can use power and his length to win on the edge. I think he's got, a little bit of dip and bend, but I think he's more so a guy that uses his length and his power to get to quarterbacks, which would really made him a difficult matchup for Joe Thuney in the Super Bowl because Joe Thuney is a guard and Joe Thuney has really short arms because he's a guard. So that was something that was really challenging for the Chiefs to block him. Now, also in terms of health, Sweat has been mostly healthy throughout his career, only having one season where he didn't play at least 14 games. Last year, he played 16, the year before that, 17, the year before that, 16, 16, 14, 16, and his rookie season, he only played 9, okay? But that might have been because he was actually elevated from the practice squad. I don't remember 2018 that well, so I can't really tell you. But I've always remembered liking him in the NFL. He has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons of 6+ sacks. He has had one double-digit sack season under Gannon, where he had an interception for a touchdown, 11 sacks, 48 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, also a career high, 23 quarterback hits, also a career high. These past couple years after Gannon, he's put up 6.5 sacks in 2023 at 26 years old and 8 sacks at 27 in 2024. Okay, so I think he's been relatively the same player. I would say that he has shown a versatility to be able to play with his hand in the dirt, standing up in more of a Vic Fangio scheme and more of a Jim Schwartz-esque, type of scheme. Gannon also, I would say that Gannon kind of does tend to lean in towards more of a Vic Fangio style of defense, more of a hybrid style of defense. Josh Sweat graded as the 36th ranked edge player this season, playing 821 snaps in the Eagles rotation. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he played the most snaps of any Eagles edge rusher this year. If I'm not mistaken, I think he did. Yeah, so Nolan Smith played 755, and yeah, so he played the most, which is important, right? He played on most snaps, 821. Throughout his career, according to PFF, his best season was under Gannon, once again, 12th. So that also calculates with the stats. 12th in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. 56th in 2023. 21st in 2021. So PFF sees his prime as 2021, 2022. But this year, he had a resurgence, so to speak. He was 49th in pass rush grade this year. 37th in run defense grade. Overall, good player in both facets. When we dive into some of the stats, for the pressures and things like that, let's see what he put up this season. He led the Eagles with 54 pressures on the edge, and he had an 8.1 pass rush productivity grade, which was 24th in football. So that's pretty good. Yeah, so I mean, that's right around where I would put him. Like, he's like a top 25 edge rusher in the NFL. So the Cardinals are getting a certified number 1 pass rusher from the edge position. He's not a game changer. He's not a field tilter. He's not like a TJ Watt, a Myles Garrett, a Nick Bosa, that type of player or category. Trey Hendrickson, right? Max Crosby. He's not in that category, but he's in the category of pretty much everybody else, which is like, he's a good player. He doesn't really have any weaknesses. He'll put up a good 8 to 10 sacks a season. He'll get to the quarterback. He's smart. He fits the system. He knows the coach. And he's actually shown to be almost close to an elite player when he plays for Gannon. So that's a positive, right? I think Gannon needs to use his leverage, or I think the Cardinals need to look at the players that he's coached before and see who's been productive for him. I think that's something they haven't really done well enough in free agency, in my opinion. So I feel like that's a really good signing for them. The money, you're going to have to spend on him. It's not a huge thing, right? 4 years, $76.4 million. The Cardinals had a ton of money. It's about time they get a pass rusher. When it comes to the other player, Akeem Davis-Gaither, 2-year deal, $11 million to the Cardinals. All right, just searching up his statistics. But he's a guy that I've always kind of liked. He's usually been the third linebacker for the Bengals, usually contributing as a special teamer behind Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt over the last few years. But this year he had to play more because of the injury to Logan Wilson. This year, he had an interception. He started 7 games. He had 82 tackles, which was the most of his career. His previous high was at 25 years old with 46 in 2022. He is now 27, turning 28. He had his most tackles for loss, his most tackles of his career. And he also only allowed an 88 passer rating in his coverage. So that's not horrible, especially for a linebacker. So the Cardinals might be able to use him. I'm not sure if he'll start. I don't think he would start for them. Maybe he would right now. He was graded as the 58th best linebacker in football, but he's going to be a good core special teams player, an all-around linebacker that can move, that can flow to the football, has got really good athleticism, 6'2", 228, flies around. But an interesting player, like a guy that you could see maybe taking that next step. Maybe there was enough on tape over his 7 starts last year to showcase that he could be a starter in a bigger role. Maybe the next Robert Spillane type of player who we've discussed, where he was kind of like a third linebacker in Pittsburgh, a special teamer in Pittsburgh, and eventually he goes to the Raiders and he becomes a really good player and a starter. Maybe that's Akeem Davis-Gaither. He's 27 years old, turning 28 in September. He hasn't really gotten a chance to play too much behind 2 really good linebackers. At their peak, Pratt and Wilson were awesome players. So it's hard to say. Let's see if we can find anything regarding some advanced statistics on his part. Coverage-wise, let's see. So for coverage, Gaither allowed 9.6 yards per reception. It's not bad. 97 passer rating according to PFF, which at linebacker is 26th in the league. That's not bad. He did have a high percentage of missed tackles. I don't know if that really matters. 17.8. At times, those stats are kind of hard to dive through. Yeah, he's been a depth linebacker. We'll see what he can be. 2-year, $11 million. So those are the Cardinals signings from today. We'll see if that upgrades their defense in 2025. Anything happen? The Dolphins signed offensive lineman Rob Jones, who reached an agreement with the Dallas Cowboys. Former Dolphins free agent Rob Jones. Okay. Nothing else has really happened, so cool. I like that nothing's happened. It allows me to kind of recap everything. So that's good. Big Al, what's up, bro? Big Al is in the chat. The man, the myth, the legend says, what's cracking, Mitch? Free agency is here. What a first day. Crazy day, bro. Crazy day. What's up, Kyler? Says Raiders were quieter than I would have liked. Yeah, I agree. But thoughts on Jeremy Chinn? I can get to the Raiders next, bro. No problem. They made a couple signings at safety. Hoping the Raiders follow a similar philosophy to the Commanders last year and just sign a ton of guys on great value deals. That's very possible. Highlighter says Dolphins and Niners are making a push for Joey Bosa around $10 million. Thanks for that update. We'll see what happens. I think if the Dolphins do beat the Niners in that negotiation, I think it will be due to money. Okay. Let's talk about the Raiders because we got our guy Kyler in here. Shout out to Kyler in the chat. Let's pull up Jeremy Chinn. If you guys haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button. Also, join the Discord. I'm trying to push the Discord this offseason. That's a big point of emphasis for us this offseason. We're trying to push the Discord. We're trying to get a lot of community members in there, so we got a lot of people to chat about football with. And you guys can check out everything that's going on with me in terms of all the content. Today, I was live on Bleacher Report's YouTube. It was a lot of fun. We had former NFL player there. We had a Rams content creator named Jake. Pretty fun stuff. He was all over the 49ers, hating on the 49ers. It was pretty fun. I was trying to talk him off the ledge, but yeah, it was interesting. Okay. Raiders. The Raiders. I'd like to hear Big Al say the Raiders. All right. Let's go. Okay. What's the contract? The Las Vegas Raiders have brought in a Pete Carroll safety. Jeremy Chinn, the big boy at strong safety, has signed with the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a 2-year, $16 million deal with over 75% of the deal fully guaranteed. They've also signed a Lonnie Johnson Jr., a free safety, nickel hybrid type of player, veteran. The Raiders have signed him as well. I don't have an update on what the contract is. This one was a little bit later in the day. He's a proven veteran who's played kind of across many different teams. We'll talk about him as well. But 2 different signings. The Raiders have also taken care of business in-house. Malcolm Kuntz, as Singh points out, is back with the Raiders. Very good player, very under-the-radar player. We can touch on him a little bit. He did have an 8-sack season a couple seasons ago. Was expected to have a huge breakout year in 2024, but he did get injured and I believe tore his ACL, which really hurt the Raiders' front 7. But he's a good edge number 2 to complement Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson in that rotation. Has a lot of upside. I like that they brought him back. Adam Butler, also a former great Patriot legend, is sticking around with the Raiders. A designated pass rusher type from the interior, has had some production with the Raiders in the last couple of seasons. Very good story, Adam Butler. I think he actually survived cancer, had some very serious health issues, was able to overcome that in his NFL career, return to football with Josh McDaniels Raiders, and then eventually stick with the team. So interesting, from that perspective, that they've kind of been able to take care of their own on the defensive front. And I think the Raiders have a sneaky good defensive line with Kuntz, Crosby, Wilkins, Butler, and also Tyree Wilson. So that's an underrated aspect of their team, but they're looking to upgrade their secondary. Jeremy Chinn, 2 years, $16 million. I've always liked Jeremy Chinn because he is a rare breed. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, and he plays safety. Just not very often you find a guy like that. 6'3", 220. You know who that kind of reminds me of? Cam Chancellor. Just going to throw that out there. I think that's what Pete Carroll saw when he turned on the tape. 27 years old. He will be 27 because he's already turned 27 in February. So he is exactly 27. He will not be 28 in 2025. He had the most tackles of his career, tying his rookie season, in which he was actually second in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. In 2020, he was a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. He finished second that season. This year, he had 117 tackles with the Commanders, 73 solos, which was the second most of his career. He also had 1 interception, 5 passes defensed, 1 forced fumble, and 2 sacks. The thing about Chinn is he is not a deep field free safety that plays the middle of the field. He is often at his best in the box because of his size, but he's one of those players that has been a difficult conversion to the NFL because at the college level, a lot of people were unsure about what he was because he was a bit of a joker, a bit of a hybrid player. And the Panthers drafted him kind of to do a bunch of different things. He was playing nickel, he was playing linebacker, he was playing strong safety, right? There's even the designations on his Pro Football Reference. His rookie season has him listed as a linebacker. Then he's listed as a free safety. Then he's listed as a strong safety / free safety. Then he's listed as a safety. So throughout his entire career, he has been a lot of different things to a lot of different schemes and teams. So he's one of those players that, despite playing pretty well throughout his career, having ups, having downs, I feel like it's been one of those things where can you figure out how to get the most out of this athlete? How to get the most out of this player? And perhaps Pete Carroll can do that because he knows a thing or two about safeties. Now, I would say that his thing is not coverage. I would say his thing is playing near the line of scrimmage, playing in the box, playing as a blitzer, playing as a tackler, playing as a run defender, playing as a force in the running game. Even according to Pro Football Reference, he allowed a 131 passer rating last year, allowing 7 touchdowns into his coverage. And that's kind of been a common theme throughout his career. 132 passer rating allowed in 2023, 115 in his rookie season, 105 in his second season. His best rating allowed was 93. That being said, he is a really good tackler. Looking at the PFF stuff, 42nd in the NFL, according to PFF, at safety. So a solid starter. 1,207 snaps is the second most snaps in the NFL last year of any safety, and probably like any defensive back. Like, that's a lot of snaps. 42nd in the NFL, including the playoffs, I believe. He's a good pass rusher too. So if you want to use him in that regard, he graded as the 16th best safety rushing the quarterback. 35th in coverage this year in terms of his grade, but the stats don't really reflect that. So just throwing that out there. Like, okay, so his grade was pretty good, but his stats weren't very good. So maybe the stats weren't really a reflection of how well he played in coverage. And the crazy thing is you look at his snap variation throughout his entire by position. Guys, this is nuts, okay? He had 106 snaps at the defensive line level, 470 snaps in the box. So that's over 570 snaps, rather, on the defensive line or in the box. He played 222 snaps in the slot. He played 369 snaps at free safety. He played 117 snaps in kick coverage. He played 86 snaps to block extra points and field goals. And he played 40 snaps as a wide corner. So he's played all over the field. And this is just last year. So as a member of Dan Quinn's defense. Now, part of that is because Dan Quinn's defense plays more man coverage. So that, the reason he was out wide at corner 40 snaps is probably because he was tracking a tight end or a running back that was split out wide. So that could be a reason for that. In a more traditional zone system, he probably is more so based in the strong safety box role as opposed to playing everywhere. But it just goes to show the guy's versatility, which is typically something I very much love and I very much covet out of my players because I'm a Patriots fan. I like hybrid players. I like guys that can do a lot of different things. That's what the Patriots have always been to me. That's what I really like in my players. He had 15 stops this year in pass plays, which was 10th in the NFL. That's a pretty good number as well. So he makes his biggest impact as a tackler, as a force player, as a big hitter, as a presence. He doesn't usually pick off passes, but he did, I think, pick off a pass in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, on Jared Goff. Yeah, he did. I remember it. Yeah, he had some moment. 29 tackles in the playoffs in 3 games is also a pretty big number too. So yeah, Jeremy Chinn is a hybrid guy. I'm just intrigued to see if they can use him correctly with the Raiders. And they didn't have to pay too much. I thought he played really well with Washington last year, and I thought he earned maybe a little bit more money than what he got. 2 years, $16 million. That's a good budget signing for a starting caliber player, 42nd graded safety. So he's not an absolute stud, but he has stud traits, and he's had, he's really good in a certain role. So I'll throw that out there. Lonnie Johnson Jr., I'm not sure the contract. Once again, it's probably not a lot because he's kind of a journeyman player. I'm not even sure if PFF has actually upgraded his stuff yet, but Lonnie Johnson Jr., yeah, I don't see it. Let's see if they have it for where he played previously. If they have any of his stats. Let's see, I'm trying to find. Can I find him? Maybe he's listed as a corner. Okay, no, he's listed as a safety. He only played 10 snaps on defense last year, so yeah, there's not really much to discuss. But I do recall him playing in Houston as a safety and sometimes a nickel corner. He did have a season in 2020 when he was graded as the 42nd best safety in football. But the year after that, he was literally the worst safety in the league, 92 out of 92. The 2 seasons after that, he graded around a 64 or a 62 grade. They're probably looking at him as a hybrid player, a guy that can play a bunch of different positions and contribute to special teams. 6'2", 213 pounds, another big safety, long arms, has a lot of range. Let's just check his stats from his previous seasons. I do remember him being a starter in Houston at one point. Let's just pull up, 2021. He had 3 picks, 6 passes defense, 55 tackles. He also started in Houston in 2020, 76 tackles on that season, and then 41 tackles as a rookie. I believe he was relatively high draft. Yeah, second round pick, 54th overall back in 2019. So pretty high capital. But the last 3 years, he has been a backup. He's been a backup. He's been a special teamer. So he hasn't really seen the field on defense too much. But in his first few years, he was actually a starter in the NFL. So yeah, kind of a journeyman guy, but a plug and play if you need him type of player for the Raiders to complement their secondary. So that's the Raiders. We're done with them. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button, don't be a jabroni, and make sure you subscribe to the Bottom Line View. Also, join the Discord if you haven't already. We still got some big signings to discuss, like the Broncos. We'll get to them. The Packers made some nice moves. The Jets. Brandon says Texans cut Lonnie and he went to the Panthers last season. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he played for the Panthers last year. He didn't play much on defense. Afix is in the chat. I'm hurting today, man. Already miss Huff and Greenlaw. We're going to talk about those signings to the Denver Broncos. Josh Jones is expected to sign with the Seahawks of the Ravens. Okay. I don't really got to talk about that, but I can put that on the list. Just in case something in the future pops up, I'll add that to the discussion. Tomorrow, what do you guys think I should do? Should I go live a couple times tomorrow and just do the recap style? Should I make individual videos? What do you guys think I should do? What's your favorite thing that I do? Let me know in the chat. I'd like to know that. What's up, Afix? Hope you're doing well, man. Singh says, Mitch, too many times the Ravens players go to the Jets. That is kind of odd. I will say that. Let's talk about... Who should we talk about? Who should we talk about, guys? Let's talk about my boy, Zach Wilson. Let's talk about Zach Wilson and James Daniels. Actually, some interesting signings from the Dolphins. I might actually release this as a video. Bro, if Zach Wilson becomes the starter of the Dolphins, I'm just saying, don't be surprised. I'm just going to say that right now. Don't be surprised, mother fudger. Don't be surprised, bro. All right, let's talk about it. The Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins have signed Zach Wilson. Yes, sir. The former second overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft is a Miami Dolphin. Zach Wilson will back up Tua Tagovailoa. And if he is, Tua turned the ball over, not so fast, but Zach Wilson might steal his job. And I'm not even joking. Because Zach Wilson has some talent, Dolphins fans. Fins up. At least Zach Wilson provides some aura. I feel like, no, not even joking around here. 1-year deal, $6 million, fully guaranteed. It could be up to $10 million. My brother, Zach Wilson, many have compared me to him at one point. I feel like this is a guy that he's still really young. Last year, he didn't play. He sat behind Bo Nix. He sat in the meeting rooms of Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. He got a little bit of time in the preseason. He was able to make his TikToks and live his life, you know. He has a 12-21 record as a quarterback. His touchdown-interception ratio is pretty gross. 23 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. He has a 73 career passer rating. That being said, he's played 34 games, 3 years in the NFL, still has a rocket arm. He's got all the platform throws, off-platform deliveries, quick release, all that sort of stuff. He's got some elusive feet, and he can extend plays at times and run a little bit. He's a little bit on the smaller side. Even at 6'2", he just appears small in the pocket. But that doesn't appear to be a problem with the Miami Dolphins. I actually think if Zach Wilson ever works in the NFL, it'll be with the Miami Dolphins. He fits them very well. He fits their offense very well because he has a quick release. He's got a strong arm to fit the ball into tight windows. And if they give him a lot of RPO throws and quick one-read reads and quick throws, he can build some confidence and be an effective passer for the Dolphins. This is a low-risk, high-reward signing by the Dolphins. It's a former second overall pick. Okay? He's only 25 years old. He turns 26 on August 3rd. All right? And I know that he's struggled throughout his career, but he's also shown some flashes in his career. Okay? Even the last time he played, he went 4-7 with the Jets. He had 8 touchdowns to 7 picks. He improved his completion percentage. He improved his touchdown to interception ratio. He improved his overall yardage per game with the most of his career. He was able to, behind a terrible offensive line in New York, arguably the worst in the league, he was still able to lead 3 fourth-quarter comebacks and 2 game-winning drives in 2023. Okay, he did have a winning record as a starter in 2022, going 5-4. All right, so I actually prefer signing Zach Wilson over trading for Kenny Pickett. I can at least see the upside. Kenny Pickett has no physical upside in his game. No arm strength, no real mobility. He's older than Zach Wilson, believe it or not, even though he was drafted after him. Zach Wilson, kind of like Sam Darnold, a former Jet bust, has taken a season to sit on a staff with one of the best offensive minds in football, like Sam Darnold did with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Zach Wilson has sat under Sean Payton's tutelage. He's got to watch an entire season. He's learned from Aaron Rodgers in some way, shape, or form, where they had a pretty close connection and a pretty good friendship. And yeah, he needs to learn how to take less sacks and hold on the ball a little bit less. I think a lot of that had to do with the infrastructure and the team around him and the offensive line that was never properly built for him. I think he immediately lost confidence. He had some problems off the field with the whole mom situation, right? The MILF situation, if you know what I'm saying. But I feel like he's still got tangibles to his game where as a coach, I could see Mike Macdonald wanting to hone that, wanting to like really be able to teach that. Maybe eventually he becomes something. Like, it's not crazy when you think about the Geno Smiths of the world and you think about the Sam Darnolds of the world and these quarterbacks that at 30s, 28 are able to break out. Like, Zach Wilson is still only 26. So eventually a guy that was a second overall pick with the talent that he has, he gets good coaching, he gets mature, he gains some confidence, he figures out who he is as an individual, then eventually the football stuff comes. So yeah, it hasn't been the brightest and the best for Zach Wilson, but I feel like this is a good signing with some upside. And he's a fun kid to cheer for. So $6 million, 1-year contract, fully guaranteed. That could grow to $10 million if he, for some reason, gets incentivized. Maybe he plays because Tua goes down, and that could be his opportunity. But, you want to be secure behind Tua, so I understand going with some upside rather than some boring backup that's not going to provide anything for the Miami Dolphins in terms of upside. So Zach Wilson, the Broncos and Jets quarterback, has signed with the Miami Dolphins. Now, the other signing is important for Miami. They signed guard James Daniels, former Steeler, former Bear. James Daniels has been one of the best guards in football over the past few years, whenever he entered the NFL. Okay? So let's talk about him. James Daniels did get hurt last year as a member of the Steelers. And this is where he became really interesting. Because last year on the Steelers, he, in 209 snaps, had a 92.9 PFF grade. Just for reference, a 92.9 PFF grade would have been the second best grade in the NFL. In the games that he played, in the snaps that he played, he was the second best guard in the NFL. But the bummer for Dolphins fans is that you've signed a guard to a 3-year, $24 million deal. I'm not sure about how much is guaranteed, how much is incentivized, so that could change my opinion. But he's off a torn Achilles, and he's a little bit older. So that's where it becomes concerning. But I love this signing for the Dolphins. Why? Because it's an upside signing at a position where, first of all, the Dolphins don't have a lot of cap space. So they can't go out there and they can't sign a ton, guards to a ton of money. They can't just splurge on players. But this is the type of player where if he's able to recover from the Achilles, he's proven that he can be a really good guard. And even if he's less than what he was, he can still be good and above average, right? So last year he started 4 games. But previous to that, 15, 17, 17. Then he had a 5, then 16, 16. So 2 years he's missed most of the season throughout his career. But the others, he remained pretty healthy, okay? And you look at his career grades, James Daniels last year had an awesome PFF run block grade of 92.5. In years previous, with Pittsburgh, he was graded as the 33rd best guard in 2023, 24th in 2022, 2021, 18th, 2019, 14th, and 2018, 20th. So he's been around somewhere between the 20th best guard in football, somewhere in that range, okay? So James Daniels, 6'4", 327 pounds, good size, good power. Interesting fit for Miami. He's mostly been in zone schemes in his career, but I would say that like Arthur Smith, for example, that's a similar fit as it was in Chicago previously, but he's got the size of a guy that it feels like would be more in a gap scheme at 6'4", 327. He's got some good size. But previous, he had good movement skills. But how will that work out with his Achilles, right? But one thing I think he will bring is hopefully a little bit more power and strength to the pass protection in the inside for Tua, and hopefully a little bit more oomph up the middle. Because it feels like Miami, very effective at running the ball outside, very effective at getting to the edges. But whenever it comes to running the ball downhill, they've lacked that efficiency, and that's because I don't think they have enough power from the interior of their line. So maybe James Daniels can help that out. So, this is a high upside signing for the Miami Dolphins. Both of them are. Zach Wilson and James Daniels. Daniels, if he's healthy, will definitely start for the Dolphins in 2025, and hopefully can refine his form from last season where he was on pace to be one of the best guards in the NFL that year. Okay. Shout out to Mike in the chat. Steeler Nation in the chat. Steeler Nation says, if we get Rodgers, yeah, it's an ironic scene to have a guy potentially one time before he retires. He can still sling the ball, but the ideal goal should be us getting younger at quarterback and draft a quarterback in 26. Well, I don't think you need to get younger at quarterback this season if you're going to just draft one next year. I'm not sure what you're saying there. I don't really get that one. Steelers, Elandon Roberts signed with the Raiders. I guess I should talk about that, huh? I already talked about the darn Raiders, bro. The Steelers did sign Darius Slay today. I haven't talked about that there hasn't been a contract released. So I might just wait for the next set of Steeler news and just add that on, bro. But Elandon Roberts just left to the Raiders, which was, I think, expected. But that's a Patriot guy. That's a Tom Brady signing right there. Let's talk about that, just because I talked about the Raiders already. So we'll just quickly go to that, because I don't even know if I need any stats for Elandon Roberts. I feel like I know that player pretty well. So let's see how he would fit. He's actually kind of a cheaper Robert Spillane, to be honest. Not as good, but he's getting old, though. Okay, let's talk about him. Yeah, Jordan Lewis signed with the Jags earlier today. All right. The Las Vegas Raiders have maybe replaced Robert Spillane in the middle of their defense. At least they found an archetype, a similar player to Spillane. In fact, he was the replacement in Pittsburgh for Robert Spillane, funny enough. His name is Elandon Roberts. former Patriot, Super Bowl champion, former Tom Brady teammate, is now a Las Vegas Raider. This has Tom Brady sprinkled all over it. 6'1", 238, an absolute hammer of a hitter. Elandon Roberts has been one of the biggest hitters in football over really like almost the past decade. He's almost been in the NFL for a decade. He's been in the NFL since 2016. He won 2 Super Bowls as a member of the New England Patriots. He had over 100 tackles with the Dolphins and the Steelers in 2022 and 2023, where he found himself as a starter. He had 4.5 sacks and 107 tackles in 2022 as a member of Brian Flores' Dolphins defense. He is a Brian Flores staple and favorite. Also in 2023, he had 101 tackles, 2.5 sacks as a member of the Steelers in 2023. In 2024, he played a smaller role with Pittsburgh, kind of going a little bit behind the scenes. He wasn't a starter. Patrick Queen took the spot as the starter along with Peyton Wilson, the rookie. So he played a lot less, but he still contributed with 46 tackles and 1 sack. He started 14 games technically, according to Pro Football Reference, but he really didn't when you look at the stats. I mean, but in 2021, he had 83 tackles, 1 sack, 61 tackles, and 1.5 sacks in Miami. And in New England, he was always like the third linebacker. The third linebacker, sometimes the second, depending on injuries. His best in New England was 2017, where he had to play a little bit more because Donte Hightower was injured. He had 67 tackles, 2 sacks that season. He only ever has caught 1 interception in his entire career. What he is good at is playing downhill. He's very good at stopping the run, plugging up holes, taking on blocks, and sacking the quarterback and pressuring the quarterback because he's got very good burst downhill, very good acceleration and explosiveness downhill. He can hit a running back in the hole, and he can also take on fullbacks, take on running backs, run them over, and run them into the quarterback. That's what he's good at. That's what Brian Flores used him in New England and Miami to blitz, to hammer running backs, and also that's what Pittsburgh was able to use him with. Right? That their style of defense asked their linebackers to play downhill, similarly to what Robert Spillane was able to do for them in the past as well. So Spillane was kind of in that role with the Raiders. Elandon Roberts is also a guy that has connections to the defensive coordinator of the Raiders because he was formerly in New England as well while Elandon Roberts was there. So there's crossover between the defensive coordinator and Elandon Roberts from his New England days as well. So Elandon Roberts, a pretty good pickup for the Raiders, considering the contract. I think it's actually a really good deal when you consider the contract. He got a 1-year, $3 million deal. He is a little bit older now, though, so slowing down could also have something to do with this contract. 30 years old. He turns 31 April 22nd, but a very good special teamer, very good depth linebacker, very good run defender, big hitter, and a good locker room presence that's won multiple Super Bowls. That's how you turn around your culture. Elandon Roberts has been in places like this before, being asked to be a culture setter. New England, Vegas is the new one. Pittsburgh and Miami were the former ones. So Elandon Roberts to the Raiders to replace Spillane. Okay, done with the Raiders. The Giants have added another player. Okay, Chauncey Golston. The Cowboys, the end. 3 years, $19.5 million. Okay, guys, what does Caesar think about that? I want Caesar's reaction in the chat. All right, Gronk spiked the like button, guys. If you haven't already, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna continue hammering out these signings and this reaction. Okay, let's get next to the Packers. We'll talk about the Packers. Nate Hobbs and Steven says 26. What's 26, Steven? Aaron Banks. Okay, we'll talk about those two. Any Packers fans in here? Oh, likes. Yeah, let's get them up. Let's get them up. Like Caesar with his girlfriend. Get it up. All right. Let's go. Packers. Go. Pack. Go. Dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. Go. Pack. Go. The Packers have signed one of my favorite corners on the market this offseason. Underrated. Nate Hobbs, a former Raider, signs a 4-year, $48 million contract, and they paid big time for a former 49er. Aaron Banks, Mr. Banks, signs a 4-year, $77 million deal to play left guard in Green Bay. Now, the question will be, how do the rest of the Packers offensive line, how does that shape up? How does that work out? Because they spent the first-round pick on Morgan last year. Is he playing right guard? Is he playing tackle? Like, what's going on there? We're going to have to figure that out. And then what happens with the rest of the guard position in Green Bay this offseason? But we'll talk about everything. So, first of all, we've got Nate Hobbs, which was their first signing of the day, I believe. Last season, he played 11 games, had 49 tackles. He's dealt a little bit with injuries the last couple of seasons. He's played 4 NFL seasons, had a phenomenal rookie year where he had 74 tackles, a forced fumble, an interception. He started 9 games, had played 16, had a sack, did it all, played the nickel spot for the 2021 Raiders, which also, if I'm not mistaken, made the playoffs that year. He was a big part of it. Was really good at nickel for them. Now, this past year, he played only 11 games. The year before that, 13. The year before that, 11. So he's missed games every year. But I like him because he's got inside-outside versatility. He can play inside. He can play outside. His best play has been in a Gus Bradley defense, in my opinion, as a rookie. Allowed a 92 passer rating, 6.4 yards per target, 7.8 yards per completion, which is really low. And I feel like has that inside-outside versatility, better in zone than man, in my opinion. I think that's useful for the Green Bay Packers because the Packers are not really a man coverage team. They tend to play more zone than man. In coverage this year, Nate Hobbs allowed a 67 completion percentage, a 9 yards per reception, which is pretty low. And that 9 yards per reception was good for 13th in the NFL. He allowed only 280 total yards into his coverage. Keep in mind, he only played 11 games. He also had 8 pass stops this season and 23 tackles in the passing game as well. So Nate Hobbs, 6 foot, actually a little bit taller than I would have thought, 195 pounds. He's 25, turning 26 years old. He's played perimeter corner. He's played nickel corner. I think where he's at his best is nickel, but it will be interesting to see where he does play. Does he play inside? Does he play outside? The fit is probably on the outside because Keyshawn Nixon is the Packers' nickel corner. And you would think with Alexander potentially leaving the Packers and the fact that, they have Eric Stokes as a free agent, you would think that perimeter corner would be where he would play in this defense. He's been able to play both, so I wouldn't rule out either one. But yeah, he's shown a versatility in his scheme, playing in really 2 totally different type of defenses, right? Under the recent Raider regime and then formerly under Gus Bradley. So he's played in that cover 3 Seattle scheme. He's played in more of a Patriots style of scheme. He's played a more, 2 high, safety high type of defenses, more single high defenses. So he's played in kind of everything. He's a really good tackler in my opinion. He shows some physicality in his tackling, in the run game. And I feel like he's a really feisty player. He brings a lot of energy, brings a feistiness to his game. I think that Packers fans are hoping this is a guy that can be a steady performer for them all season. He's not going to be a superstar, but he's shown real upside at this position, shown real ability at this position. So Nate Hobbs, a good football player. Not much else to say. Maybe we could look a little bit deeper into his previous season. So 2023, let's just look at 2023 real quick for Nate Hobbs. Let's see. I will say that Hafley's system, the Packers defensive coordinator, is most similar to Gus Bradley out of the coaches he's played for. So again, only a 9.3 yards per reception allowed. Last year, he allowed a 103 passer rating. He had 47 pass play tackles last year, which was 13th in the NFL, 15 stops, which was also a pretty high number. So definitely involved in tackling. That's why he's such a good nickel corner. So he's got that physicality aspect to his game as well. So that's Nate Hobbs. Now the other signing for the Packers was Aaron Banks, a San Francisco 49er left guard. 775 snaps played last year. Did miss some time due to injury. 33rd in the NFL is a little bit higher than I would have thought from a Pro Football Focus standpoint. He is a pretty darn good run blocker, grading as the 23rd best run blocker in football last year. He, like Hobbs, is also pretty young. The Packers tend to attract and tend to sign these type of free agents where they're like 26 years old, 27 years old. They'd rather go after that type of guy, right? So 33rd in the NFL last year. The years previous, 48th in 2022, 60th in 2023. Good athlete, can move very well, fits the zone scheme of the Packers, exceptional fit, understanding that he was in San Francisco. Matt LaFleur runs a very similar run game in Green Bay to Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. I am just questioning whether or not the Packers truly needed a guard, and maybe Packers fans can correct me on that. Elton Jenkins was 32nd graded at guard. Sean Ryan, I believe is how you correctly pronounce his name. I always mess it up. Is 1,027 snaps. Graded as the 46th best guard, and you would think that's who he's taking over for. But Elton Jenkins might be playing tackle, so Elton Jenkins can play every position. So it's kind of like, or he's actually listed as their center. So they have him at their center. Zach Tom's really good at right tackle. They have Rasheed Walker at left tackle. Jordan Morgan's there. So maybe what they're thinking is they're so I understand what they're doing. Now that I look at it, they're letting Josh Myers walk as their center. So that was the area that they needed to upgrade. They're moving Elton Jenkins to center, according to according to our lads. Okay, Aaron Banks is going to take over at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, and then they're going to have Sean play right guard, and then Walker and Tom at left and right tackle. Interesting. So that's what I'm looking at on our lads. That would make a lot of sense because if you look at Josh Myers last year, he was 38th in center grading last season. Like, he was not a good player, right? He's the weakness of their O-line. So that is the move. Zach Tom, really good last year, one of the best tackles in football, 6th graded. Rasheed Walker, very good pass blocker at an 80.1 grade, 41st in the NFL. So really now, if you look at the grading across the board and you look at the youth and you look at the ages, all these guys are like 26 years old or younger, right? So then I don't know where Jordan Morgan's going to go. Does Jordan Morgan play right guard? Or, because he's a first-round pick. He's got to play, don't you think? So that's interesting. Does Jordan Morgan play right guard? Should they have signed Aaron Banks or just slid Jordan Morgan in at left guard? I don't know. Like, it feels like a lot of money for a solid player, a good player. $77 million? I don't know. That feels like a lot. It feels like they should have used that on the defense. But yeah, because I've never been a huge Banks guy. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. You know, watching him play for the Niners. I think he's a good player, not a great player. He's had his moments. He's a better run blocker than a pass blocker. He's 27 years old, turning 28 in September. 13 games this year, 15 games last year, 16 the year before that. Had some injuries this year, but nothing too crazy. So that's an interesting one, man. I kind of wonder what they're thinking. With Morgan, I wonder what they're thinking overall. Let's dive into some blocking stats just finally here with Morgan. Or not Morgan, sorry, with Banks. So Banks, 97.4 pass blocking efficiency. He didn't allow any sacks, so that's a positive. He allowed 6 quarterback hits, 17 hurries, 23 pressures, a 97.4 efficiency, which was tied for 28th with Trey Smith, Tevin Jenkins. It's pretty good. So yeah, Niners lose a starter on the offensive line. The Packers gain one. I just wonder if it was the right move. But I do think that the center upgrade was the right idea by the Packers. That is what I can get behind. So those are my thoughts on the Packers moves. Okay, we're done with the Packers. Alex says Chase is going to Chicago. Chase who? Jamar? Good luck. Good luck with that, brother. Guys, if you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe. Okay, Chauncey Golston sign. Should we do the Giants right now? Let's do the Giants. Let's do the Giants, shall we? Join the Discord. Thank you, Mr. Caesar. Appreciate that. Pull up the Giants. Adebo, James Hudson, Chris Board, and Chauncey Golston. Okay. All right. The New York G-Men have upgraded their defense in the front seven and the secondary. Paulson Adebo, maybe my favorite corner on the open market, has signed with the Giants to become their CB1 in 2025 and hopefully beyond. He signed a 3-year, $30 million contract. Very underrated player, one of Bill Belichick's favorites from the 2024 NFL season, listed on his second team All-Pro. That's what Bill Belichick thought of Paulson Adebo, Giants fans. He just didn't play enough games to truly prove it this year. He was injured. Also, the Giants signed Chauncey Golston late on March 10th, this Monday. $19.5 million, 3-year deal, a starter for the defensive line of the Cowboys in 2024. Another one has left for a new team. And Brian Daboll and the boys said, hey, we'll steal that guy from the Cowboys. Why not? They also signed a backup tackle in James Hudson, $12 million with another $4 million in incentives over 2 years. A guy that's played for the Cleveland Browns as a pinch left or right tackle. We'll talk about him. And veteran Chris Board has signed with the Giants, a very good special teamer over the past many years in the NFL. He is one of the best in the game. 2-year deal worth up to $6 million. Don't really need to mention Chris Board too much. He's a really good special teamer, a backup linebacker, a guy that would be like your fourth linebacker. He can play a little bit of linebacker, especially against the run. He's a really good tackler, but you don't really want him out there very much. He's a core special teams player. Very, very calculated, very smart, high IQ, high effort player for your special teams. But that's a good type of guy you want. A captain, a guy that you want on your team, in your locker room, especially for a culture like the Giants that needs some turning around. Let's begin with Paulson Adebo, though, who I felt was maybe the best value in free agency at corner, especially when you look at some of the contracts that have been given up to Charvarius Ward and Carlton Davis and those other guys that were near the same category. An 80.5 coverage grade for Adebo this past season. That was really, really good. 14th in the NFL this past season. Okay. Or was that last season? That was last season, guys. He was actually 12th last season. This season, his grading wasn't quite as good. Still solid. He allowed a 59.6 reception percentage. Last year, the year before, 2023, he had a 56.8 reception percentage allowed, which that's pretty impressive, okay? So the last 2 years, he's had under a 60% completion allowed. The years previous, he had a 65 and a 69, okay? He does tend to allow yards when he gives up catches. So his yards per reception allowed, 12 this year, 15 the year before, 13 the year before, 14 the year before. So it tends to be down the field because he plays a lot of man. Now, one thing about Adebo, the last 2 years, 1 touchdown allowed in both seasons, 3 interceptions this year, 4 interceptions the year before. Okay? 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions. 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions. So he's only allowed 2 touchdowns and has 7 picks over the last 2 years. 67 passer rating allowed in 2024, 69 passer rating allowed in 2023. So very good corner, perimeter corner. He's got good size, 6'1", 192. Really good in man, really good in press. That's the style that you're going to get in this player. Played for New Orleans under Dennis Allen. Very physical style of coverage. They like to bump those receivers off routes, get in their face, play with physicality, hold a little bit, be clutchy and grabby, right? 3 out of his 4 NFL seasons, he has at least 3 interceptions. That's another thing where he gets his hands on the football. These last 2 years, he has 28 passes defensed. 28, okay? And he only played 7 games this year. He had 10 passes defensed in 7 games, okay? 2 forced fumbles in 2023, 76 tackles in 2023 is his career high. He is only 25, turning 26. He is 26 in July. And they only had to give him 3 years, $30 million. That to me is a bargain. I think that's one of the best signings that I've seen all day. When you talk about the player, you talk about the age, you talk about the upside, you talk about the fit, you talk about the need, all these reasons. Pro Football Reference backs up Pro Football Focus's gradings. You know, only 1 touchdown allowed, as it said, on both sites. 71 passer rating, 62 passer rating. And the 2022 season seemed to be a low for him where he allowed 6 touchdowns and a 119 rating. But I think a lot of that had to do with the amount of man coverage he was playing. And also keep in mind, okay, that Lattimore's been hurt a lot. Like, okay, so we just take into account, right, Adebo's played for the Saints, right? Marshawn Lattimore was supposedly their number 1 corner. Lattimore had only played 10 games and 7 games the last 2 years for New Orleans, okay? And then before that, he played 16 in 2021. So he was even the CB1 at times for that team as well, for like a good portion of that time. So throwing that out there as well as he's been able to break out. So Adebo, really good player. I think this is a great signing for the Giants. They needed a corner more than any team in the NFL, and they've got themselves a young, promising, good one as long as he's able to bounce back from his injuries. Now, next you have James Hudson, a tackle to provide some depth for the Giants. This guy has been a solid replacement level tackle in the NFL. Nothing too special, but worth discussing. So I actually think the Giants' tackle position is not in bad shape. Andrew Thomas is a really good player at left tackle. Jermaine Illuminor is very steady at right tackle, 53rd in the NFL. Thomas, 26th. Thomas only played 416 snaps this past year, which is a reason why you sign a guy like James Hudson, who played 222 snaps this past year. He's had decent moments. This year was not his best at 50.4. 6'5", 313. Not that old. A former 4th round pick. Okay. Can play. He is listed. They list him as the backup left tackle. So he's a guy that if Thomas gets hurt again, he can plug, he can play. He doesn't grade particularly well on PFF. I'm going to check some of his stats just in terms of like games started and things because I'm not exactly sure. But he played 4 games this year for Cleveland, started 3 of them. He started 7 games in 2023 out of 16 that he played. 3 starts in 2022 and 4 starts in 2021. So not a large sample size, but he certainly played enough to get a good kind of understanding of him being a backup in the NFL in that Cleveland offensive line. He's 25 years old. He turns 26 in May. So another like 26-year-old guy that maybe has a little bit of upside, but decent backup swing tackle type of player. And Chauncey Golston also signed with the Giants. This one's pretty exciting. Chauncey Golston just had a breakout season with the Dallas Cowboys. This is kind of a surprise because he was a starter in Dallas and he wouldn't be an edge starter in New York because they have Kayvon Thibodeau on one side, Brian Burns on the other. Golston would be their 3rd edge rusher in most situations, replacing probably Aziz Ojulari. Golston, 6'5", 268. He's a bigger edge. He's pretty good against the run. 5.5 sacks this past year, 56 tackles, 8 quarterback hits. Had an interception as well. No forced fumbles, but 5 passes defensed and found a way to get his hands on the football. He's somebody that is trending up. So that's a good thing. Whenever you sign, these are 3 players that are all kind of trending up. So that's good news for the Giants. That speaks to savvy signings and savvy scouting. 56th by PFF was his grade this past year. He played the most snaps for any edge player in Dallas, 790 last year, because of injuries to not Dorrance Armstrong, who left for the Commanders, Micah Parsons, and DeMarcus Lawrence. He has been graded well throughout his career, 34th in 2022, 43rd in 2023, 56th in 2024. Neither his run defense grade or his pass rush grade is particularly great. Okay, 76, 71st. But he was pretty productive this year, played a ton of snaps, and his overall grades have been pretty good. So it's kind of interesting that they haven't really graded him that well at either spot, but he's been good overall, which is kind of funky. But anyways, that's just something I noticed. So a 3rd rusher, I think that's what he is. Probably ideally, he had to step up last year and he had to play a ton of snaps because of the injuries, and things like that. But as a 3rd rusher, I feel like he's a good signing. And he's still pretty young. He's 26. $19.5 million is not egregious by any means for a defensive end that has the capacity to start and play starting snaps. He had 37 pressures last year. 37 pressures last season. Would have ranked 52nd in the NFL. They list him on PFF as having 7 sacks. If that matters to you, I said 5.5 in the normal traditional stats. In terms of stops, sometimes, PFF lists their own sacks. He also had 30 stops in run defense, which was 23rd in the NFL as well. And diving deeper into his pass rushing productivity, I think the Giants, I'm looking at the Giants right now, and I feel like they can compete with the Cowboys for that 3rd slot in the NFC if they can figure out their quarterback. I feel like the Giants have made some nice moves so far for not too much money. They haven't been super expensive. Young players, just in their prime. The difference between the Cowboys and the Giants is really just quarterback. I feel like their rosters are relatively similar, but, Dak versus whoever the heck the Giants quarterback. We'll see if it's Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, who it ends up being, guys, but I think this is overall good start to free agency for this team. Let's look up his pass rush here, if I can find it. It was only 5.1, so that's probably where the dip in the grading is. 5.1 pass rush productivity, which kind of speaks to sacks, what you can generate on a per-play basis. 5.1 is 91st in the NFL, which is not great. But, like I said, some good things to look at. So, yeah, some really nice moves by the Giants. Love Adebo. I like Golston, especially for the price. I'm surprised he actually didn't get more. I think Chris Board's a solid add for their special teams. And Hudson is a decent backup tackle. And he's young. So, yeah, pretty good moves for the Giants. Nothing too expensive either, which is nice to see. Okay, so the Giants are done. Who do we got next? Who's next? So we got the Broncos, the Jets, the Chargers, the Bucks, the Chiefs, the Commanders, the Titans, the Jags, the Bills, the Bengals, the Dolphins. I talked about the Dolphins. The Dolphins, with Patriots. We can talk about the Patriots at some point. What do you guys think? Samuel wants me to talk about the Chiefs. Guys, if you haven't already, Gronk spiked the like button. Singh wants me to do the Jets next. All right, sounds good. Ben Smith says Paulson Adebo's deal was put out wrong earlier. It's 3 years, $54 million with 36 guaranteed, not 3 years, $30 million. Okay, that's interesting to note. Thank you for that. That makes a lot more sense. Appreciate that. I'll make note of that. I can't really do anything now about what I just said, but yeah. Samuel says Bills, question mark? Okay. Big Al says, let's hit the Chargers. All right, we'll do the Chargers and then the Jets. How about that? Sports Universe says Bears, please. I've also got to talk about the Bears. Did I even put the Bears here? I talked about their offensive line, so I don't need to talk about that. But I didn't talk about their defense, so I'm going to have to talk about that too. I might do the Bears later because I need to get their contract info. I forgot about them. Okay. I need to do the Broncos. The Broncos is a big one. Okay. Let's do the Chargers. I will do the Broncos. Don't worry about that. Okay. Let's do the Chargers because Big Al said so. And then we'll do the Jets. And then we'll do the Bears or the Broncos. And then we'll go from there. It's been a long day for me, guys. But I'm gonna keep it going, man. As long as there's not some signings at 10 at night, that'd be nice. It's 8:48 on the West Coast. All right. So I'm just looking for Donte Jackson. Chargers signed 2 players, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they signed anyone more than that. Sometimes they slip under the cracks. Okay. Najee Harris. Big one. Najee Harris. Okay. It's time to bolt up. Chargers. The Chargers have signed running back Najee Harris, Alabama boy, Pittsburgh Steeler, first round pick, Jim Harbaugh. He's doing push-ups right now. He's so pumped up. He's got Najee Harris to run the rock. 6'1", 242, one of the biggest backs in football. He can do it all. Run in between the tackles, pass block, pass catch. Najee Harris is a dog. And he's only 27 years old, despite having 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. If you want 1,000 yards, you sign Najee Harris to the Los Angeles Chargers. That's what you do. And on top of that, you've got a guy in Greg Roman who's seen him up close and personal as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. This is a Baltimore Raven-esque running back, a Pittsburgh Steeler running back. This is a Greg Roman running back. This is Najee Harris, okay? 1,200 yards as a rookie. Pro Bowler, 7 touchdowns, 1,034 yards, 7 touchdowns as a sophomore, 1,035 yards, 8 touchdowns in 2023, 1,043 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2024, 1,000. Now, his yards per attempt has been up and down, 3.9, 3.8, 4.1, 4.0. Nothing too special there in yards per attempt. Not very efficient, not very electric, but he is a tough to tackle back, and he is good at everything, right? This is a guy that as a rookie caught 74 passes. As a rookie, 74, okay? 467 yards. He caught 41 in his sophomore campaign, 36 this past season. Didn't have any receiving touchdowns the last 2 years. He led the NFL in touches as a rookie with 381. 381, okay? Now, those touches have gone down thanks to Jaylen Warren, but actually his yards per target went up this year. His yards per touch went to an all-time high this year at 4.4. So his usage has gone a little bit down, but his yards per touch has remained successful in his career. So he's definitely not shown any sort of dip in his game. If anything, he's shown an ability to actually be a little bit more explosive, a little bit better, in my opinion. Just from watching him, not even really statistically. Okay, so you look at broken tackles according to Pro Football Reference. His best ever in a season is 30 in his rookie campaign, 30 in 2023. His yards after contact average, 2.1 was his best in 2022. So those are some things to note. But 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, that's what he does. That's what he'll do for the Chargers. And he's also a healthy guy, okay? He has never missed a game in his NFL career. 17 starts, 17 games, okay? Something to note there. That is a very big deal. The best ability is availability, right? So you've got that as well. Now, let's throw into the fact that Najee Harris, what's his grading? I don't think PFF probably loves Najee Harris, but let's see what they have to think about him. So 16th in the NFL last year. I'm actually shocked by that. 16th in the NFL was his grading. That was far better than J.K. Dobbins, who was graded as the 44th best running back. Both played about the same amount of snaps. Dobbins, 568. Najee, 587. Now, Najee had a 77.5 running grade, which was pretty good. That was 16th. His receiving grade was 32nd, which was average for running backs. In his career, he's had the 30th grade as a rookie, 27th as a sophomore season, 2023, 21st, and 16th in 2024. So actually, his grading has gotten better with every single season he has played. Okay, that's interesting. He's in his prime. He's proven to stay healthy. He's proven to be able to carry the load. All valuable assets to any backfield. He can pass block. He can pass catch. He can run the ball. He's good between the tackles. The thing that he misses is an explosive speed. He doesn't break away from defenses, right? He doesn't create explosive runs. He's a guy that he'll make 2 people miss, and then the guys will catch back up to him and tackle him. That's the type of running back he is. He has some of the most fun runs you'll ever see because he stiff arms a guy, jukes a guy, hurdles a guy, runs for like 7 yards in the most creative fashion and most aggressive fashion you'll ever see. But it's not like he's going to run for 70 yards like Saquon and put the peace sign up like Tyreek Hill. That's not going to be his game. But pretty good in short yardage, tough to tackle, tough to handle in open space on quick dump offs, can be effective in that regard as well. And he can definitely have the size and the physicality to stand up in pass blocking situations and take on a linebacker because he's got excellent size. So Najee's a good back, good all-around back. He secures a really solid floor for the Chargers rushing attack. And I would argue that he provides a lot more consistency to the Chargers rushing attack because he'll be there every game. He'll be able to carry the ball 20 times a game. In fact, he might actually carry the ball more for the Chargers than he did for the Steelers because the Chargers don't have a Jaylen Warren. Now, maybe perhaps they bring back J.K. Dobbins and they see J.K. Dobbins as more of a change of pace to Najee Harris. That could be interesting. Now, the second player that the Chargers signed is a cornerback named Donte Jackson, also a Pittsburgh Steeler. They must have been impressed by the Pittsburgh Steelers when they played them this year. A 2-year, $13 million contract, cheap for a guy who had a ton of interceptions last year. Now, Donte Jackson has never really had a consistent NFL season. So that's why he only had a $13 million 2-year contract, okay? But he had 5 picks this year, all right? 5 picks, 15 games started as the CB2 of the Steelers, 8 passes defensed, 38 tackles, which was actually like the second least of his career, which could be a good thing for a corner, to be fair. I'll also say, right, he had 4 picks as a rookie in Carolina in 2018. He's had 3 picks multiple times, 2 picks, 2 other multiple times. So he puts up interceptions pretty regularly, and he gets his hands on the football fairly regularly as well. So he's able to be a little bit of a ball hawk. He's got excellent speed. That's one of the assets of his game is speed. And this past year, he allowed a 69 passer rating in his coverage. He's also had some seasons where he's been really good, like 2020, he allowed a 78 passer rating, 2021 an 86, 2022 a 90. He's had only 2 seasons above 100. So he kind of is what he is based on the numbers, like opportunistic, little bit of a ball hawk, better in zone than man. Very fast though. The Chargers play a ton of zone. They play a lot of too high, which the Steelers tend to play as well, although the Steelers do play more man than the Chargers, I would say. And he's a little bit hit and miss, but he's good when he's playing well. He's good when he's playing well. And honestly, like, his numbers are better than I would have thought, just looking at them. I feel like his reputation has been lesser than his stats. I would say that for sure. Because I've seen far more inconsistent players based on just the Pro Football Reference coverage stats. I would say that for sure. Now looking at his PFF stuff, he had a terrible grade, a 45 coverage grade. That's really bad. Just looking at, again, I don't know what you really trust here. Do you trust the stats or you trust the grades? So a 45 is 8th worst in the NFL. That's terrible. Okay. Now, part of that could be ad-libbing. Part of that could be that Jackson is dicey. He's a guy that tries to bait quarterbacks, and he's not always in the right position. And when he gives up plays, they're big plays, right? This year, he allowed 4 touchdowns, but he did have 5 interceptions, so it kind of like evened things out. He did allow 13.4 yards per reception, which is a pretty high number. He also allowed 500 yards into his coverage, which is not terrible for a guy that played 531 snaps, but it's not good, right? That's the 42nd most yards in the NFL. He only had 7 play stops. He's also not a great tackler. He had a missed percentage of 24.4, which was 6th worst in the NFL. So poor tackling, inconsistent, kind of speaks to his game. Coverage, goes for the picks, big play guy, better in zone, better at reading the quarterback, fast. But his coverage stats overall, rating-wise, completion percentage-wise, not as bad as you would think. If he can maybe just hone his game in, become a little bit more conservative, and the coaching can grasp him, he's a decent CB2 or depth cornerback for a team. So that's Donte Jackson. He is 29 years old, turning 30 November the 8th. Feels older than I would have thought. 5'10", kind of a skinnier guy, 180 pounds, but doesn't even really look it. He kind of looks skinnier than that, in my opinion. He's got really skinny arms. He's probably not much of a press player, more of an off-coverage guy, despite his speed, which is unfortunate. So, interesting player. I could see him starting for the defense, but I'd also love him if he was a depth player. So, pick your poison there. But those are Chargers. You got 2 Steelers. Congratulations. All right. What's up, chat? What we doing in the chat? Chargers are done. Christian says Najee just doesn't fit the Steelers scheme. That's why the Steelers got rid of him. That's fair enough. Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. It's possible. It's possible. I would love that. I think that would be great for the Steelers if they picked up Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think they're going to do it personally, but we'll see. Big Al says the Niners and Dolphins have made offers to Joey Bosa. Yeah, I saw that as well. Hopefully the Niners can get him. I want to see him play with Nicholas John Bosa. Isn't that his name? Okay. So we got the Broncos, we got the Jets, we got the Bucks, which only really signed Hassan Reddick. We've got the Chiefs. So maybe we could skip the Bucks. The Commanders only signed Javon Kinlaw. I talked about the trade, and I forgot to include Javon Kinlaw because I'm an idiot. The Titans signed Dan Moore and Cody Barton, which we could talk about that if you want. The Bills signed a couple guys, Michael Hoyt and Josh Palmer. The Bengals only signed one player, Oren Burks, so we could maybe skip that for tomorrow. If they sign another guy, we could throw that together. I like having the multiple players to talk about. Mike, what's up, bro? I shouted you out, bro. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? I like talking about multiple players. You know what I'm saying? The Bungles. The Bears. We got to talk about the Bears. Who put the Bears stuff in my chat? Sports Universe. Thank you, Mr. Sports Universe. We'll talk about your defensive ends. I got to figure out how to pronounce that guy's name, though. The Colts D end. Odeyingbo? It's Odeyingbo, isn't it? Or something like that. He's pretty good. I'm going to look him up. Remember when I still don't have confidence pronouncing I still don't remember if it's Okereke. I think it's Okereke. Is it Okereke? Another Colt guy. Now he plays for the Giants. I always mess his name up too. Why do the Colts always go for the guys with the most African names? Kind of pisses me off, I'm not going to lie. Okay. 3 years, $48 million. Grady Jarrett. That's an easy name for me. Said that one a few times. $43.5 million. There you go. Okay. Thank you, Sports Universe. Odeyingbo. Thank you for that. All right. Jets, because Singh is wanting the Jets. He loves the Jets. Did we forget? Okay, so I got Brandon Stevens for the Jets. Andre Cisco for the Jets. That's it, right? Singh? We good? Odeyingbo. Now you're just confusing me. Odeyingbo? Odeyingbo. Oh my goodness, that's hard. Odeyingbo. This could be a video by itself. Me pronouncing Odeyingbo's name. Justin Fields is booty, bro. Okay. Let's do the Jets, because Mr. Singh wants the Jets. The Mr. Critical, Mr. Singh. He wants to hear about Brandon Stevens. Let's see. I like the Amos signing. I like the Amos signing. That's a good one. Okay. Let's go. The New York Jets say it with me, J-E-T-S, Jets, have signed 2 defenders for their new look secondary. Aaron Glenn's Jets secondary. Cornerback Brandon Stephens, Baltimore Raven, 3-year, $36 million contract with the Jets, $23 million guaranteed. Andre Cisco, one of my favorites, kid out of Syracuse, a New York native, growing up, only 24 years old, Jacksonville Jag. Cisco has also signed with the Jets. Okay, so 2 signings. I believe Cisco was a 1-year, $10 million. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. Please look it up. Don't have it on my notes, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Brandon Stephens, 3 years, $36 million, 23 guaranteed. Let's begin with Brandon Stephens, the more known player. 6'1", 215, big cornerback. If you guys ever watch the Ravens, he's got very good size, very good length. He's pretty thick in his shoulders. He's a broad corner. Okay, so he's a perimeter guy, plays, zone and man, has versatility, doesn't have the best speed. That's something that I think he lacks, but he's pretty good in press. He's pretty physical. He's pretty big. And I feel like that is where Aaron Glenn will like him. I think he can work with them, right, as a CB2 on the opposite of Sauce Gardner. If Sauce Gardner is your CB1, taking on the most talented receiver, usually not having the safety help, and you could put safety help over Brandon Stephens, have him be the physical number 2. That's what he was in Baltimore. And I think he was okay in that role. I feel like this past year was his worst year of his career, but I actually really liked Brandon Stephens in previous seasons. I felt like this year was his worst year. Under Mike McDonald, I liked him. So he even has played a little bit of safety too. So I kind of wonder, what type of role he might play. But perimeter corner was his role last year. So according to Pro Football Reference, he allowed a 64.7 completion percentage and a 106 passer rating, okay? Now, in previous seasons, he allowed an 80.6 in 2023 passer rating and a 63 completion percentage. The year before that, 2022, an 88.9 passer rating, 62.7 completion percentage. So his worst seasons of his career are his rookie season when he played free safety and his last season as a corner. But in the middle, he played pretty darn well, the years with Mike McDonald. So I'm interested, maybe that's a scheme thing, right? 1 year, $10 million for Cisco is the correct update. Thank you to Big Al in the chat. Shout out Big Al, the man, the myth, the legend. All right, Brandon Stephens. Back to him. A 49.4 coverage grade is absolutely pathetic from Pro Football Focus. That is 13th worst in the NFL. He also allowed 926 yards, which is the second most in the NFL, only behind New Orleans' Alontae Taylor. That's a lot of yards. And a big reason for that is because every team they played picked on Brandon Stephens. Every team. I feel like every team picked on Brandon Stephens. They would put a receiver over there that they liked, and they would just throw it at him the entire game. Marlon Humphrey was absolutely incredible this year for Baltimore. That didn't help Stephens in terms of targets. Like, he was targeted 106 times. That's the 4th most in the league, only behind Byron Murphy, Alontae Taylor, and Jaquan McMillan, okay? He also had an ADOT largely down the field of 14.1, which is a pretty high number. A 14.1 ADOT was the 5th highest ADOT in the NFL, okay, for, that. And then his yards per reception allowed was 12.9. So he was largely targeted vertically down the field. People were testing his speed, testing his ability to run. He did force 10 forced incompletions, which is a pretty good number at 20th best in the NFL. Okay, so 110 passer rating. He allowed 5 touchdowns into his coverage, had 0 interceptions, had 1 dropped interception, 11 pass play stops, which was mediocre. So yeah, I like Stephens in past years, and I kind of wonder off the top of my head what the difference is, because I felt like he dropped in his play this year, and I don't know if it was because they used Marlon Humphrey different, if it was because of the safety play, if it was because of, the different coverages they were utilizing, if it was because they played less cover 2. I don't exactly know, so I can't give you that answer. I'd have to do more research on that, but I definitely felt like it was tangible. Like the year previous, he allowed an 82 passer rating. He had 2 picks. He allowed only 2 touchdowns. He still saw 118 targets, which was the most in the NFL. Okay, and he allowed 814 yards, which was the 7th most in the NFL. But considering, he only allowed a 63 completion percentage. So he was targeted a lot. So basically, teams have looked at Brandon Stephens as the weakness of the Ravens. But that's because they have a really good secondary, right? You weren't going to throw on Marlon Humphrey. You weren't going to throw on their safeties. You weren't going to throw on Roquan Smith in the middle of the field. So basically, teams were like, we're going to throw at Brandon Stephens. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in New York with the scheme change, playing more physical man coverage, and how he operates within an Aaron Glenn system. My ears and eyes will be open to that. The contract is not egregious, although for a player that's coming off a bad season, it might seem like a lot. I could see how he won't work out. I do think he has limitations in terms of that speed, like I've been saying, right? And then the other signing for the Jets was Andre Sisco, probably my favorite signing so far that they've made. I did not like Justin Fields. I'm not a Justin Fields fan, as you guys know, but we talked about maybe why they made that move, because it's a boom or bust move. If it works out, it works out, and great, you have a quarterback. If it doesn't work out, they're going to suck, and then ultimately they'll have a good pick. So, I can understand it, all right? But it does feel like Justin Fields is going to be there for 2 years, potentially, which is not great. I would have preferred only 1. But anyways, Andre Sisco. Last year did not have an amazing season, but still graded at 71.5, which is pretty decent. Allowed an 83.9 passer rating. He is a true free safety. He allowed 2 touchdowns, and he had 4 interceptions. Last year, that was in 2023. That was maybe his best season of his career. Let me look up his Pro Football Reference. I felt like this year he played worse. Obviously, because the entire Jacksonville secondary played worse. He's 6 feet tall, 210. He can run. He's got good speed and good range. Last year, he had 4 picks at 23 years old in 15 starts. And in 2022, he had 3 interceptions in 15 starts. His career high for tackles is 73 in 2022, his sophomore season in the NFL. He is only 24 years old, and he is turning 25 in late March. So he'll be only 25. This year, he allowed, according to Pro Football Reference, an 110 passer rating, but that's interesting because his passer rating last year, according to PFF, was 80, and on Pro Football Reference, it's 103. So I don't really know how that works out. But that's where, different places have different stats sometimes. So you kind of got to be able to filter through all that stuff. But 2023, I thought he was really good. His coverage, his range, his ability to track the ball, his ability to just be a free safety. So I think that's what they're looking for him to do with the amount of cover 1 and man coverage that the Jets do play. You want a cover 1 safety, like that guy that's roaming free in the secondary, that can be able to cover from sideline to sideline, that can be able to knock the ball out from sideline to sideline, to be able to free roam and be able to pick the ball off and be able to track the ball at high speeds. That's the type of player that Aaron Glenn was looking for in that role. I think he landed a good one for that specific role. Also, you have to take into account that Jacksonville switched their scheme this past season. He did grade much worse this year at a 56.7 coverage grade, which as compared to last year, he was like 70 something. So yeah, that's much worse. But again, it's not like he dropped in it's not like he dropped in quality. It's probably something to do with how bad the defense was, something to do with, the players around him, the scheme around him, all that sort of stuff. He allowed a 63.3 completion percentage. He allowed 125 passer rating according to Pro Football Focus. And according to his snaps, let's see his snaps. I want to see his snaps. So his snaps, he played 684 snaps at free safety, 206 in the box. There you go. All right. So Andre Sisco is a guy I like. I think he has upside. 1 year, $10 million. I think that's worth it. I think he's going to be a starter for them. They desperately needed safeties. They need 2 starting safeties. So they're still searching for one out there right now. But Young player. He's from Syracuse. He's from New York. He's from the area. A guy that still has a lot of potential to be untapped, that a head coach who is a former corner can potentially coach him out of him, right? Coach it out of him. So Andre Cisco and Brandon Stevens to the Jets. There you go. All right, guys. Gronk spiked the like button if you haven't already. Another one is down. Who's up next? Chat. Bears or Broncos? Bears or Broncos? Chiefs. Bears, Broncos, Chiefs. I'll leave the Commanders for tomorrow. Still got Patriots. A little bit of Patriots news too. I didn't talk about Mack Hollins. I didn't talk about Tonga or even Joe Milton potentially getting traded. I could save that, though. I mean, it's not super serious. Bears. Bears next. The people want the Bears. We're for sure doing Bears, Broncos. We could do the Chiefs and the Jags. Okay. Let's see if my energy continues to keep up. All right. Who's landing Genty? My guess right now would be the Bears, honestly. But let's talk about... Oh, I'm just going to say Odeyingbo. If I don't get it right, I don't freaking care, bro. I really don't. I'm just going to say I don't know how to pronounce his name. Okay? I don't. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. The Bears are looking nice. The Bears are looking nice. Okay. Come on, laptop. I believe in you, laptop. You can do it. All right. The Chicago Bears. The Bears have upgraded their offensive line and now their defensive line. That's right. 2 big-time signings. One for the interior, one for the edge. The man that I can't pronounce, Dayo Odeyingbo, has signed a 3-year, $48 million contract. And Grady Jarrett, the veteran, the man, the myth, the legend, was released today and signed today. So congratulations, Grady Jarrett. You still got it, sir. The Bears have upgraded their O-line and now their D-line, and I felt like their D-line was just as big of a need. All the fans were saying, Mitch, the O-line, the O-line, the O-line, the O-line, the O-line. We got to protect Caleb. Bro, what about the D-line? What about getting to the quarterback? What about helping out Montez Sweat get to the quarterback? Well, that's what they've done here with Odeyingbo. All right, 746 snaps played this past season, which was actually more than Montez Sweat and more than DeMarcus Walker, who played the most amount of snaps for Chicago in the defensive line last season. 73 coverage grade, believe it or not, a 65 pass rushing grade for the man from Indianapolis. All right, 54th overall, which was actually a little bit higher than Montez Sweat, according to Pro Football Focus. Take it with a grain of salt. But 55th in pass rushing grade, 76th in run defense grade. Okay, so what I like about him, he's got good size, 6'6", 286. Good length, young, 25 years old. He will be 26 in September. He's been a rotation player for most of his career until the last 2 seasons, where he had 8 sacks in 2023 and 3 sacks in 2024. He did, though, and this is the interesting part, despite having 8 sacks in 2023 and 3 sacks this year, don't think he fell off, right? He had 5 sacks even the year before that in 2022. So he's put up a modest amount of sacks, right? 5, 8, 3. That's not terrible. But he had 17 quarterback hits in both seasons. So the same amount of hits, different amount of sacks. He also had 31 tackles in both 2022 and 2024. So his numbers have been pretty solid across the board the last 3 years. He's still a developing player. He's still very young. And he's a starting caliber edge player that still possesses a lot of upside. I'm intrigued to see how Dennis Allen, the new defensive coordinator of Chicago, is able to use him. Because what I like about him in Dennis Allen's system is he's got a lot of size. He's 6'6", 286. Okay, think of Cameron Jordan as the prototypical Dennis Allen defensive end. 6'4", 287. Okay, he's a little thicker, a little not as big, right? I guess he's about the same. He's actually bigger, technically bigger, a pound less than Cameron Jordan. But that's that strong side edge that can set the edge in the running game, that can enable the weak side edge to be able to feast in the pass rushing department, right? So think of the Saints with Cam Jordan and Trey Hendrickson once upon a time. Chicago will have Odeyingbo and Sweat. Okay, so there's a good collaboration between those two, right? And oftentimes, Allen has a guy that's more steady against the run and a guy that's also very good as a pass rusher to complement. Okay, so that's Odeyingbo in terms of the role. So more of a run defender than a pass rusher, although last year's PFF grades would indicate the opposite, I would say. Looking at his in-depth numbers here, he had 42 pressures, which is a pretty good number, 13 quarterback hits according to Pro Football Focus. So his 42 pressures was 44th in the NFL. 5.5 pass rushing productivity is not great. That would mean an average of so he was 79th in the NFL in terms of his pass rushing productivity. In pure pass rushing snaps, he had a 7.2, which also isn't phenomenal, right? So he's more known for his run defense, which the Colts have been a very good run defense. It makes sense that he's more known for his run defense as well because he's so big. He's 286 pounds playing defensive end in the NFL. That's nearly a defensive tackle, right? So that does make a lot of sense. Okay, a guy that was similar on the market that I saw the Bears maybe going after was Chauncey Golston, a similar name that we could discuss there. But I like the fit. I like the player. It makes a lot of sense prototypically for a Dennis Allen defense. I just brought up Cameron Jordan. I didn't even know the metrics. I didn't even know the size. I didn't even know anything. And I just said, this guy's Cameron Jordan. And I'm not saying he's as good as him, but I think that's what Dennis Allen is thinking, okay? Is basically this is the same stature, same size, same look, right? In terms of run D, not outstanding run stops. I think he had 12 last year, which was 50th in the league. Right? He's been in a rotation, though, pretty heavily in Indianapolis, despite playing so many snaps. If you look at Indy's defensive front, they've had a lot of good players go through there. And they also brought in a first-round pick last year, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. Dayo, a second-round pick in 2021, young player, just peaking at the right time for Dennis Allen in 2025. Now, the other signing was Grady Jarrett. We all know Grady Jarrett, okay? He's been one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL for the past decade. He really broke out, from my familiarity, in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 51, if you recall. 6 foot, 288 pounds, never known for his size. He is a smaller, quicker, twitchier athlete at defensive tackle. His prime is definitely past him. His prime was 2018 through 2022, I would say, where he had about 6 sacks a year, 16 quarterback hits a year, that sort of range. Was a multi-time Pro Bowler, broke out in that Super Bowl in 2016, and became a Falcon for life. This is his second team. He's played for the Falcons since 2015. So pretty loyal guy, has signed there, and then eventually got cut by the Raheem Morris regime, unfortunately. Based on his numbers on Pro Football Reference, his knockdowns have gone down. His pressures have gone down, although his pressures went up this year compared to 2023. But 2023 he only played 8 games. So he didn't play too much in 2023. But he'll be a starter for sure. He's probably going to be their most talented defensive tackle in terms of pass rushing. 3 years, $45 million, does $43 million, does feel a little rich for a player of his age. He is 31 going on 32, but he's still a good player. I'm not too familiar if there's any crossover between Dennis Allen and Grady Jarrett. I don't think directly, but perhaps someone else on the staff might have some crossover there. Obviously, Grady Jarrett did play under a disciple of Dennis Allen in Atlanta last year. So maybe he viewed that tape and saw how he could play in his defense. So that's a possible solution there to that question. Andrew Billings is a good run defender for the Bears. They have Dexter, who's a young, promising player, but needs development. Jarrett will certainly be their best defensive tackle. He's not going to overwhelm games anymore, but he can still produce. Let's check out some of his in-depth PFF sort of stuff. So, last year for the Falcons, he was graded as the 44th best defensive tackle. So still good, but not great, right? If you look at his PFF grading, 2017, 16th, 2018, 7th, 2019, 4th, 2020, 13th, 2021, 31st, 2022, 30th, 2023, 34th, now 44th. 44th is the worst grade of his career since his breakout season of 2016, or breakout playoffs, okay? A little bit undersized, but that doesn't really matter too much. He's got the twitchiness. He's got the quickness. He's been able to overcome it his entire career. He still was managing to play 744 snaps last year. Okay. Looking at his run defense from last season. Let's see if we can find anything. His run defense, he had 33 tackles in run defense and 24 stops. His 33 tackles was good for 16th. His 24 stops was good for 20th. In the NFL, among defensive linemen and edge players. So 14th stops in terms of just defensive tackles, 33 tackles was 12th among just defensive tackles. Okay, so run defense was a strength for him last year. Something to think about, okay? Pass rushing wise, not as good. I mean, his sacks have gone down noticeably. Like, he's only had 4 sacks the last 2 years. He had 6 sacks in 2022. He had 1 sack in 2021. So really, if you take out 2022, he's really only averaged like 1 or 2 sacks. I don't know if that's a system change or anything like that, or if that's just because he hasn't been the same player. And his pass rush productivity was pretty poor at 4.3. So he's kind of converted to more of a run defender as of late in his career. 34 pressures. It's not awful. That's actually decent. That's 33rd in the NFL, but that's a lot due to volume as well. So yeah, Grady Jarrett, still a starting caliber defensive tackle, a good football player, a veteran that's been there, that's done that, that's experienced a lot in the NFL, that's played a multitude of schemes, quick, twitchy player, little undersized, while you have Odeyingbo, who's a younger, potential, really interesting upgrade to your defensive end position. I think both of these are upgrades. I think Jarrett and Odeyingbo are both players that are upgrades over the starters from last year, which is the biggest point of emphasis for Chicago. So that's our Bears conversation right there. Really some great signings by the Bears this offseason. I feel like the Bears have had one of the best offseasons so far for sure. Working on the fronts, the line of scrimmage. Guys, if you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button. Why'd the Patriots overpay so many players? I don't really see it as overpaying. I see it as getting good players in your building. They've gotten 5 new starters. They've had so much money. I mean, they had the most salary cap in the NFL, so they could overpay players. Why not? Why not, bro? Should we talk a little bit about the Patriots or no? Who should I go to next? The Broncos? I'm getting pretty tired, I'm not going to lie. Maybe I'll go till 10. I'll try to get through it till 10. Let's see. Okay. We're going to talk about the Broncos. The Broncos. Shut up, Christian. Jabroni. Who do you think you are? Huh? Okay. I mean, there are no real stats for Hufanga and Greenlaw. They didn't really play last year. So, I don't even know what I'm looking for, to be honest. But we can just go. Okay. I think I know these guys well enough. All right. The Denver Broncos have boosted their biggest defensive holes. The second level, Dre Greenlaw, the assassin, sideline to sideline, spearing human beings for a living. And Hufanga, an all-pro, plays as fierce as his name suggests, Hufanga. With the flow of Troy Polamalu, he plays like it's his last snap on every single down. The Denver Broncos fans will love these two individuals because they're 49er freaks. That's what they are. These two guys are fast, fearless, tough, and really good when they're on the field, which is the key underline, when they're on the field. Dre Greenlaw, linebacker formerly of the Niners, has signed a 3-year, $35 million deal coming off an Achilles, which is a key ingredient. Well, Talanoa Hufanga has agreed to a 3-year, $45 million deal. Interesting that Hufanga got more, maybe because he's considered a little younger and a little healthier and didn't have an Achilles injury. But Dre Greenlaw, 6 foot, 230, not the tallest. Okay? Doesn't really matter, though. Never heard him in the past. 27 years old. Will be 28 to start 2025. Didn't really play in 2024 due to the Achilles he suffered in the Super Bowl, which was one of the most freakish, most disappointing, most annoying injuries in NFL history. I really feel like if Dre Greenlaw plays the entire game in Super Bowl, whatever it is, against the Chiefs, they probably win. Because as soon as he left the game, Travis Kelce started doing his Taylor Swift shenanigans and going off. Okay? But Dre Greenlaw has been one of the best linebackers in football when healthy over the past 3 to 4 years. Okay? 120 plus tackles in 2023 and 2022. He had last year in 2023, so this most recent sample size, he had 4 passes defensed, 1.5 sacks, and he had 4 quarterback hits. Now, he is not a big stat guy. You have to actually watch Dre Greenlaw to appreciate how good of a player he is. The thing about Dre Greenlaw is his speed, his relentlessness, is his makeup time, is how much ground he can cover, things like that. Very good in coverage, very good in space and zone coverage. His reaction speed, his explosiveness, those are things that stand out about Dre Greenlaw and just his overall toughness. He was even good back when he was the third linebacker for the 49ers, right? When they were fielding guys like Kwan Alexander above him and things like that. Al-Shaair was also a compliment to the trio with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So he never, was like a huge tackle guy. And like if you even look at his snap percentages, like his highest percentages, 2020 he played 82%, 2022 he played 88%, 2023 he played 89%. Those are the highest of his career, but he's also kind of worked in rotation throughout his career as well. But yeah, I think he's been at times a top 10 linebacker in football, playing as a weak side backer alongside Fred Warner as the middle linebacker. It'll be interesting to see what exact role he plays in Denver. Whether they see him more as like the middle linebacker type, the dot player, or if that's still going to be Alex Singleton, or if they'll use him to his strength like he was in San Francisco, where he's just free roaming and being an absolute dog. I don't think it's that expensive. Honestly, for Dre Greenlaw, I feel like he looked pretty good when he returned last year to the field. I thought he looked amazing against the Rams in the first half of that game. The only thing is you have to watch for the injuries. Injuries might start to pile up with him, which would be very disappointing. But he's only 28, so it's not like he's in his 30s. And at least he has a couple games of tape under his belt to understand that he has recovered from his injury. So that's a big factor. I feel like if he had not played at all last year, he would have made a lot less money, and he probably would be on the 49ers right now. But I love Greenlaw. Great player, ferocious player. He's gonna totally upgrade the Broncos. You're gonna see an instant impact with his speed on the field. The other player is Talanoa Hufanga, who is going to be the complement to Brandon Jones, who broke out for the secondary of the Broncos. And what I love about these signings is they've directly addressed the two biggest weaknesses of the Broncos, arguably on their roster, but definitely on their defense, right? They have a really good edge rusher in Nick Benito. They have a really good interior. They re-signed former 49er DJ Jones. They have John Franklin Myers. Zach Allen is an absolute stud. Brandon Jones is a good player. Pat Surtain is the defensive player of the year. Riley Moss is the best white corner in the league. And Jaquan McMillan is a decent nickel corner. So they really had no flaws besides linebacker and safety. And they fulfilled both of those flaws. And if they hit on both of these flaws and signings, they have hit on two Pro Bowl level players. These are two Pro Bowlers at their best, right? Hufanga was a first team All-Pro in 2022. Dre Greenlaw is a Pro Bowl level linebacker, although I don't think he's ever received the accolade. He is definitely that good of a player if you've ever seen him play. So looking at Hufanga's career, he's really only had 1 year where you can really look at him and say like, oh, that's the season. But this past year, he tried to fight through some injuries. Last year, he played a bit. So his rookie year was 2021. He was primarily like the third or fourth safety, and he played on special teams. He actually had the blocked kick against the Packers. A blocked punt for a touchdown. Remember that in the divisional round? That was him. 2022, at 23 years old, he had 4 picks. He had 97 tackles. He was a first-team All-Pro, 9 passes defensed. At 24 years old, 2023, he played 10 games. He missed a good portion of the season. He had 3 picks in 10 games, 52 tackles. This past year, he played 7 on and off again games, 38 tackles. Okay, I don't think he had an interception, which speaks to maybe a little bit of loss of explosion in his game. 96% of snaps played in 2022, 89% in 2023, 71% in 2024. I still liked his ferociousness in the run game, his ability to shoot and play the run. I think he'll be utilized well in this defense because I think he's got a unique capacity to play the run in this defense. I think he's pretty good as a blitzer because he's fearless. And I think he'll be pretty good along the line of scrimmage, kind of like a Budda Baker for Vance Joseph's defense that he had in Arizona. Kind of like Budda Baker, I could see Hufanga fulfilling a similar role. Now, in 2023, he actually was on pace to have his best passer rating allowed of his career at 60.1. So he was playing really well in 2023. And if he stays healthy in 2025, there's a reason to believe he could return to Pro Bowl caliber level because he was an All-Pro in 2022. He was playing really well in 2023. He got injured in 2023. Then he was on and off again in 2024. And the injuries he had in 2024 were kind of like, like he broke his arm or something. Like he broke his wrist or his forearm or something. Like bizarre injuries. They weren't like a torn ACL or anything like crazy like that. I think they're mostly upper body injuries. So things to understand. But I love these signings because I think they have huge upside. They bring character. They bring feistiness. They bring ferociousness. They bring speed. But it all comes down to health, right? That's what it comes down to is health at the end of the day. But I love these players. Rooting for the 49ers the last few years. These are two of the most fun guys to watch when they're healthy. And Broncos fans, you're really going to love these guys. I think Hufanga is a great fit at safety. He was a clear guy that they had really gone after all offseason. And Dre Greenlaw has been arguably the best number 2 linebacker in football. Now he gets a chance to be the top dog, the lead dog in Denver to be the guy that is the Fred Warner of the Broncos. But one key stat that I saw on Twitter for Dre Greenlaw, in 2023, he had a league low negative 7.9 receptions over expected and 5 yards per target allowed, which was the least among linebackers. The 49ers defense also allowed 1.7 fewer yards per attempt over the middle of the field with passes targeting Dre Greenlaw. So they've been excellent over the middle of the field because of Greenlaw and Warner, and Greenlaw's been a big part of that. So Greenlaw, Hufanga, 2 awesome players, Pro Bowl level upside, pretty good contracts, a decent amount of money, but not egregious. Like, if these guys would have hit the market at their peak level of play, it wouldn't even be funny how much more money they would have made, right? So, and Hufanga's pretty darn young. He's 26. He's 26 now. Like, he turned 26 in February, so he's really young. And then Greenlaw is a little bit older, but not too old. So, those are the Broncos signings. I think they had a really good day because they were able to fulfill 2 of their biggest needs on day 1 of free agency. Negan, bro, I have spent the whole day talking about free agency. I've made a bunch of videos. I was on Bleacher Report for 2 hours. Now I'm back on BLV, bro. So, yeah. We're almost done. We're going to stay until 10, I think, Pacific. I'm going to do a couple more here. Who's in the chat? We got the Monarch in the chat. He says, I think Hufanga and Greenlaw should be healthier this year since Sean Payton changed the training camp staff. Okay, interesting. Jake says, what's up, baby? What's up, Jake? Guys, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and join the Discord if you guys haven't already. We're trying to pump up the Discord. It's a great community there. You guys also in the Discord, even if you don't want to talk, you can get all of my announcements. So, like, all my tweets go there. All my videos get announced in the Discord. All of my Bleacher Report streams I post in the Discord. So Discord's pretty crucial for the community if you want to grow closer with the BLV. It's a good place to go. And there's always good conversation in there. Goat Braden says, I love that the Colts signed Charvarius Ward. I talked about that in a video, bro. Go check it out. Daniel said, the worst signing bar 4 that I've seen is Dan Moore Jr. at $21 million for 4 years. This guy is one of the worst run blockers in the league, and the foolish Titans not only signed him to a huge contract. Yeah, that was interesting. But teams needed tackles, bro. Teams needed tackles. Should I talk about that one? Or should I talk about the Bills? The Chiefs? We could talk about the Chiefs signing 2 49ers again. 49ers. Everyone's signing 49ers. That one could be pretty quick, actually. So, because the guy they signed hasn't played very much. And Elijah Mitchell didn't even play last year. So I don't even... let's see. Jaylon Moore. Yeah, Jaylon Moore. Okay. So Jaylon Moore, we're going to do the Chiefs. Just quickly. Okay. All right. The Kansas City Chiefs have a new blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes. And they have signed not 1, but 2 San Francisco 49ers. They're the Kansas City 49ers. Jaylon Moore is the new left tackle for Patrick Mahomes, the backup of Trent Williams over the past few seasons. He is 27 years old, 6'4", 311, playing 15, 16, and 17 games over the last 3 seasons. He has only started, though, 12 games in his NFL career, basically as a spot starter for Trent Williams. That's essentially what he's been. His grading last season, what would have been the best tackle on the Chiefs, a 74.9 PFF grade, which was 14 points higher than Mr. False Start Jawan Taylor. It would have been 21 points higher than Morris. It would have been 30 points higher than DJ Humphries. I'm not sure what Joe Thuney graded out as a left tackle, but the Kansas City 49ers, Wanya Morris is probably not the answer as a third-round pick. And I'm not sure if they like Mr. Kingsley very much with a 37.9 PFF grade. And Jalen Moore actually played pretty well for the San Francisco 49ers last year and played pretty well in place of Trent Williams the year before with a 72.9 grade. So the question will be, Moore has played in a zone scheme for most of his career. I'm not exactly sure if that's ideal for the Chiefs, but they have a plethora of runs, gap and zone scheme, and it feels like they're pretty versatile in their protections. So we'll see if the Shanahan left tackle can convert and play well for the Chiefs. Now, one thing he does have is the feet, the athleticism. He's a former 5th round pick, a good find by the 49ers, by the way. Another good draft pick by them that has found a new home and a contract for the Chiefs. Now, he signed a $30 million deal, including $21.24 million fully guaranteed. That's a lot of money for a guy that's only ever started 12 games. But that being said, with tackle, you've got to make a bit of a projection. And this was one of the best available guys based on the age, based on the tape. And I guess the Chiefs felt confident enough in their projection for this player. Now, I just want to dive a little bit deeper into his performance over the last couple of years because I think he's really interesting. So I'm going to try to view his player page on PFF. So he played 271 snaps, 259 of them at left tackle exclusively. Okay. Do we have his premium stats? So he played against Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, the Rams, and the Dolphins last year. Okay, guys? He had an 81.7 grade against the Packers in a game in which they lost. He allowed 2 pressures, 2 hurries, but no sacks. He only allowed 1 sack, and it was against Miami. His worst game came against Miami on the road in Miami. He allowed a sack, 2 pressures, and that was a 53.5 rating, otherwise known as the Wanya Morris rating, okay? Buffalo, he had a 76.1 grade, which is pretty good. Did not allow a sack, did not allow a hit, had 1 hurry, 1 pressure. Chicago, he had a 75.1 grade, pretty good again. No sacks, 1 hit, 1 pressure. LA, he had a 65 grade against a really good pass rush, 3 hurries, 3 pressures. Not terrible, could be a little bit better, okay? In 2023, let's see 2023 if there's any evidence of his play. But that's pretty good. I mean, looking at that, that's pretty good. In 2023, he played against the Vikings. He had a 74.5 grade. He allowed 1 pressure and 1 hurry. They lost the game, though. They also lost against Cincinnati, where he played that game as well. 61.6 grade. Not as good. Allowed a hit, a hurry, and 2 pressures. Might have been playing Trey Hendrickson, though, so I'll cut him some slack. So his 2024 was a bit better than his 2023, but even his 2023 grading-wise was not bad. It was definitely starting caliber. So, yeah, young player, not a lot of tape, not a lot of experience, but enough there to look at and say, this could be a good contract, this could be a good signing. I think he'll be an average-level starter, which is all the Chiefs really need. I don't think he's going to be some gem, but I think he'll be okay. Now, the other player that the Chiefs signed was another 49er, Elijah Mitchell. Running back, you guys might know him. Did not play really at all last year. Got injured in the preseason, if I'm not mistaken. A former 963-yard rusher in 2021 in 11 games. In his rookie season, he had a great campaign, 4.7 yards per carry. In 2022, he had 6.2 yards per carry before getting injured, 279 yards. Really started his NFL career electric football for him. Now, 2023, he played as a complement to Christian McCaffrey. He was ruled out for a good portion of the season as well. 3.7 yards per attempt, 281 yards. this is a guy that just can't stay healthy, ultimately. And the thing about Elijah Mitchell, the contract's worth up to $3.5 million. I'm not sure how much of that's guaranteed. He might make the team. He might not. The thing I like about him in the mix for the Chiefs is he's explosive. When he's on the field, he's a good runner. He's explosive. He's efficient. He's not a pass catcher. He's not a pass blocker. Can't catch the football. Has barely ever done that in his career. He has, 28 catches in the 3 seasons he's played, 1 receiving touchdown, right? And almost all his catches came in his rookie season. So he's not much of a pass catcher. He's pretty much a zone running back, 1 cut and go. And he's had efficient moments in his NFL career, but how much of that has been the 49ers system and scheme, and how much of that has been the talent of Elijah Mitchell? Good speed, but I'm not really sure. He's 26. We'll see if he's able to rebound from the injuries. Interesting signing, upside signing, but not too much to count on with Elijah Mitchell, okay? So that's the Chiefs signings. 2 interesting 49er fits for the Chiefs. All right, Chiefs are done. Thank God I don't got to talk about those jabronis anymore. Okay. Let's try to get 40 likes before I go to bed. 40 likes before I go to bed. All right. Should we talk about the Titans? Christian wants to talk about the Titans. Okay, Danny Moore, and Cody Barton. Interesting, though. Do you guys think Dan Moore will play left and Latham will play right? That would be my guess, right? That would be my guess. All right. Okay. Oh, getting stuffed up. All right. The Tennessee Titans are going big to fix their offensive line. Big and bold. Dan Moore, left tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers, signed with the Titans earlier today, 4 years, $82 million deal, $50 million guaranteed, which is insane, and a $30 million year 1, which is crazy for an average left tackle. This might have been the worst signing of the day from a money standpoint, but if it works out, it works out, and no one will remember. Now, I will say, the Tennessee Titans have one of the most renowned offensive line coaches in the sport. If anyone can make Dan Moore into a better player than he already is, it's Mr. Callahan of the Tennessee Titans. Now, what this enables for Tennessee is a full shift of the line. J.C. Latham can move over to the right where he played in college, which he might be more comfortable on that side, and it could fix their right side of their line. Dan Moore can slot into the left side where he's pretty much exclusively played in his NFL career, including last year, where they had many different styles and types of tackles that they wanted to fit in on the depth chart, but Moore had to play on the left. And now this could enable them to have a stronger overall offensive line. It better, because he's a 4-year, $82 million man. 50 guaranteed, okay? So even at the guaranteed number, that's a lot of money. They also signed Cody Barton to a 3-year, $21 million deal to play linebacker. Might be their linebacker 2, beside Kenneth Murray this next season. We'll talk about him as well. But Dan Moore, not too old in his prime, okay? 26 years old, turning 27 in September. 6'5", 315. Has never really missed many games. He's missed 1, maybe 2 games in his NFL career. He's played 66 starts. He's started every game for the Steelers when he's been available the last 4 years. Those are all promising ingredients. Now, looking at his play last year, he only had 2 games in which he graded above 70, which is not very good for Pro Football Focus, okay? The rest of them were rather really, really awful. or that was in 2023. I'm mistaken. So in 2023, let's look back at 2023. So in 2023, he was awful against San Francisco and Nick Bosa, awful against Cleveland and Myles Garrett, poor against Max Crosby, bad against Houston, right? Then he played well against LA, and he played well against Arizona, two of the weaker pass rushes at that time. And he played really bad against Cleveland again. Myles Garrett. Played really bad against Indy. Otherwise, he was okay. The majority of his grades in 2023 were sitting around 50 through 60, which is not very good. Okay, that's not a guy that should be making $80 million. He allowed 8 sacks, 8 hits, 39 pressures, or 39 hurries, 55 pressures, and had an efficiency of 93.7. It's not very good. Okay, now let's look at 2024. Dan Moore, much better grading. Okay, I can see it already. He had 5 grades above 69, 3 grades above 75. His best games were week 8 against the Giants, week 4 against the Colts, week 2 against the Broncos, and week 1 against the Falcons, believe it or not. He had 2 games in which he had an elite pass blocking grade. That was Atlanta and Dallas. His efficiency went up to 95.4, but he did allow 12 sacks, including 2 sacks to Baltimore, 2 sacks to Cleveland, 2 sacks to the Chiefs, and 2 sacks to Cincinnati at the end of the season. Played very poorly at the end of the season, allowing 9 pressures in 2 games to the Bengals and the Chiefs. Probably Karlaftis and Hendrickson. Okay? Played all his snaps at left tackle, 1,110. This past year was his best graded season of his career. Last year was his worst. 2022 was in the middle at 62.4. This was his best, 67.4. His pass blocking grade has been better in his best seasons, although it was horrendous in 2023 at 39.7. He has a 95.5 efficiency overall for his career. This is not a legitimate left tackle that you would pay $80 million based on the PFF grades. Based on availability, maybe based on some talent, footwork, things like that, he's got enough to pass you by, but it feels like an expensive contract for a player that does not live up to that billing, although I would say that people are desperate for left tackles, starting caliber left tackles. And Dan Moore did have his best season of his career last year. So that could be enough. And he is 27 years old, which is not old, especially at tackle. So there could be a little bit of fixing to do with his game from Callahan's perspective, and you can make him an even better player, and this could ultimately pay off. But a lot of pressure is on the offensive line coach to make this guy work because he's not already refined, and you're giving him $80 million. All right. Now, the other signing they made was Cody Barton, a linebacker. He's okay. 6'2", 237, 28 years old, turning 29 in November. He started for the Seahawks, the Washington Commanders, and the Denver Broncos over the last 3 years. Probably having his best season of his career this past year in Denver, playing for a top 10 defense, had 2 interceptions, had 1.5 sacks, 106 tackles as a starting linebacker for the Broncos. He started for Seattle in 2022 and Washington in 2023. And for Washington, he got injured, but he had 121 tackles, which was second best in his career. The most tackles he's ever had was for Seattle, 136. So Barton is, in my opinion, like probably a player you more so want as like your number 3 linebacker, but I think he's passable as your number 2 linebacker. All around a decent player, pretty good athlete. Like nothing really stands out to me about his game, in my opinion. Like he's decent. Tennessee has kind of been a rotation, like a rotating door at linebacker the last couple of years. They've just constantly been filling that with different players. Now, the one thing I'll say, he played 1,129 snaps last year. He was graded as the 46th best linebacker, and he did have a good run defense grade of 76.9, which was pretty good. Definitely above average. 24th in the NFL. This was his best graded season of his career. 2023 and 2022 weren't so great for grading. Coverage has been his biggest weakness in the grading system. We'll check out. He's not much of a pass rusher. I wouldn't really factor him in that regard. In terms of pass rushing, we'll just double check that just to see the stats, but I'm pretty positive. So he had 14 pressures, which is pretty good. But that's the Vance Joseph scheme. I don't really think they'll be asking him to do that as much in Tennessee. I could be wrong, though. We'll see. Run defense is his strength. I think the fact they just wanted a guy that could start, like a guy that's played a lot of snaps, solid player, smart player. So he had 33 tackles in run plays last year and 18 stops. It's not great. He's a solid player. He's played a lot of snaps. Last year in coverage, he allowed a 98.2 passer rating, which was the second best of his career. Snap counts, 91% and 93% the last 2 years. Could be the linebacker too. All right. So that's Cody Barton, Dan Moore, and the Tennessee Titans. Two interesting signings for the Titans. A lot of money for Danny Moore. A lot of money. All right. Do we want to keep going? It is 10 now. Oh, boy. Pats Forever says, thought we'd be getting a true wide receiver one. One more like, guys. 40 likes. Ashton, what's up, bro? Thanks for joining. Pats Forever says, thought we'd be getting a true wide receiver one. And we go after the guy who don't wear shoes. Still love the signings on defense. I think Mack Hollins is a great signing. I don't think he's going to be a starting caliber receiver, but I like Mack Hollins a lot as a player. And he can contribute. And he's a really good leader, and he's a really good special teamer. I like him as a player. But yeah, I don't think he's like a wide receiver one. But the defensive ads have been phenomenal. Love those. I could finish off with the Patriots stuff and then say goodnight. Just to finish it off. I didn't talk about the Bills. I didn't talk about the Jags. The Bucks. But I can leave that for tomorrow. I could finish off with some Patriots discussion just to finish this off. Big Al says his winners are the Patriots, the Bears, the Commanders. All right, let's finish it off with the Patriots, shall we? I need to do a little bit of tuning with Tonga. I know that he was a Cardinal, a big run stuffer. I'm not too familiar with him, though. So we're going to look into that. Did I talk about Houston? Houston didn't do anything today, did they? Other than trade Tunzel. I did a video on Tunzel. Did they sign anyone else? Did anything else happen? All right. Let's go with the Patriots to finish it off. Okay. So, two final signings for the Patriots that I have yet to discuss. They have signed a core character player, great special teams value, a hint of wide receiver value, and big play wide receiver value. Mack Hollins to a 2-year, $8.4 million deal. A good bargain for a player that was so productive in the AFC Championship. A big-time player for Josh Allen against the Chiefs. And then Tonga, a big nose tackle, formerly of the Arizona Cardinals, 1-year, $2.7 million deal. Very cheap. He replaces Davon Godchaux, who the Patriots traded for a 7th-round pick to the New Orleans Saints. He is going to fulfill the same role for much cheaper. And I prefer that. I prefer that you don't spend a lot of money on a run-stuffing nose tackle like the Patriots did with Davon Godchaux. Don't think that was a good sense of salary cap. Now, first, the exciting one is Mr. Sandals, Mr. No Socks, Mr. Awkward-looking beach attire, Mack Hollins. But Mack Hollins has aura, And Mack Hollins has given the Patriots issues in the past. This is a Bill Belichick-like signing a player that's killed you in the past to your own football team. His claim to fame is the 2022 NFL season with the Raiders, where he had 690 yards and 57 catches and 4 touchdowns. And believe it or not, if I'm not mistaken, that was with Josh McDaniels. It was. So this is a Josh McDaniels guy. He's had his most successful NFL season in a Josh McDaniels offense as the X receiver as my dogs go off at 10 o'clock at night. 57 receptions, 4 touchdowns, 690 yards. Okay, he also had 4 carries for 40 yards that year. So if you're looking for the upside with Mack Hollins as a receiver, he had a really good season with Josh McDaniels as a perimeter option. He can fly downfield. He's got great speed. He played in the Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2017 as a special teamer for the Philadelphia Eagles and won the Super Bowl. He's a great character player. Josh Allen loves him. The Dolphins loved him. Brian Flores loved him. And he was a rotation player in Miami with 176 yards, 223 yards, would occasionally play, occasionally have some spot snaps, good run blocker, really good run blocker, really good size, and good speed. 6'4", 221. Just an undervalued football player. He just brings something to the table, whether it be his speed to work downfield, his size as a dimension for jump ball situations, whether it be his run blocking, his special teams value, his leadership, his physicality, his toughness. This past year, for Josh Allen, he had 31 catches, his second most of his career on 50 targets. He had 378 yards and 5 total touchdowns, which was actually the most of his career. In the playoffs, Mack Hollins had 5 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown in Buffalo in 2014. In 2024, sorry, not 2014. I'm an idiot. Okay, so Mack Hollins, he is a little bit older. He's 31. He's turning 32. But yeah, good special teams player, spot player at wide receiver, and a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun. He's a really fun player. So Patriots fans will like him. He's a good locker room guy. Like he's a good just bottom depth player that you want on your team. Now Tonga is a big boy, 6'4", 338 pounds. He is 28 years old. He has mostly been a rotation nose tackle in the NFL for Chicago, Minnesota, and Arizona. He has connections to the Vikings defensive scheme under Brian Flores, which is what I think makes him a fit in New England this year. He had 22 tackles in Arizona last year, and he only plays about 23 to 30% of the snaps for a defense, okay? His run defense grade last season, just going to look that up. His run defense grade was a 57, according to PFF, which isn't great. He had 9 stops on the year. Okay, looking deeper into him, he had 229 snaps, if I can find the details. So 132 snaps at nose tackle in particular, 39 snaps at defensive tackle left, 29 snaps at defensive tackle right. Now, if I were to look a little bit deeper, 2023 with Brian Flores' defense, he played 62 at defensive tackle left, 48 at defensive tackle right, only 30 at nose tackle. I'm kind of intrigued by what his grading was under Brian Flores, though, and then I'm going to hang it up. But I feel like this is a guy that can play some snaps, stop the run. The Patriots were terrible against the run last year. So I feel like that's an area that they wanted to improve, and they got rid of Devon Godshaw. They got a guy that's much cheaper, plays a similar role, can do a similar job. Maybe not quite as good, but let's see. So Tonga, 67.7 grade, which is a good grade in Minnesota in 2023. A 74.3 tackling grade, actually had a pretty good pass rushing grade as well in Minnesota. A 70.4. He had 9 pressures on only 188 snaps. It's not bad. So that's interesting. Seemed like he played better in Minnesota than he did in Arizona. So something to take account for. So those are the two final signings. The Patriots are also rumored that they could trade young quarterback Joe Milton. So look out for that. I'm not exactly sure who to. Maybe Tennessee, where he played college football. But he is coveted. So we'll see if Joe Milton will be a quarterback that's on the move. They signed Josh Dobbs, who I forgot to discuss, actually. Josh Dobbs is an interesting quarterback for the Patriots because he would bring a similar mobility that Milton possesses. He's actually faster. Like, Dobbs is pretty fast. He's really smart. He's the pastronaut for a reason. He's an actual astronaut. He's extremely smart. He picks up systems very well, which is key when you're playing in Josh McDaniels' offense. He's a very good character player. He started 15 games in his NFL career. His claim to fame was with Minnesota in 2023 when he went 2-2 with the Vikings. He also played 12 games in 2023 with both Arizona and the Vikings in that stretch where he was playing pretty well for Arizona as well, filling in for Kyler Murray. He's got really good mobility, really good rushing ability, and he also is tied to Mike Vrabel when he played that spot start game. He played 2 games in 2022 to push the Titans into the playoffs, if you recall correctly, when they played Jacksonville. So he does have that tie to Mike Vrabel. So that's where Mike Vrabel knows him from. And I don't really know if anyone else would know him on the staff that well, but he's a really well thought of character player and a solid backup quarterback. He kind of got mistreated in San Francisco. He was definitely more talented than Brandon Allen, and for whatever reason, he didn't start the first game over Brandon Allen, but he eventually got some play over Brandon Allen last year. And last season, he was 0-1 as a quarterback. He had 361 total yards in 2 games of action, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He put up some good numbers, though. He actually played pretty well in that final game against Arizona, did Josh Dobbs. So he's got enough tape of looking like a pretty decent backup quarterback with mobility, with smarts, and with good leadership capabilities. So it's a good pickup for the Patriots as well. So I'm going to end it here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. All the rest that I did not cover today, I'll be covering tomorrow in some way, shape, or form, most likely. I will be going live tomorrow. I'll probably be on Bleacher Report tomorrow. It's going to be another busy day on the Bottom Line View. Thanks for watching. Gronk spike the like button. It really helps the video. Make sure you join Discord for all the latest, all the greatest. Thank you so much for watching. It's Mitch. Peace. Subscribe, jabroni.